would like to first thank IHRP for their constant support to drive technology and data adoption by Singapore HR teams. These are two critical HR skills of the future. And I would like to thank Karina Kwok, the head of professional practices, IHRP, Adam Bassard, assistant director, professional practices, IHRP, and Shobana Paneer Selvam, assistant manager, professional practices of IHRP, for their continuous support. And it's indeed a great honor to play host to these set of human resource leaders, including HR BPs and heads of HR, who are really keen on embarking on the HR tech mental wellness, employee mental wellness journey. Now, we have three exciting speakers today, lots and lots of content. So we have Marion Neubronner, who's actually with the NUS School of Medicine, but today she's representing MOHT, the Ministry of Health Office for Healthcare Transformation. So she's a consultant of mental health with them. So she's going to talk through certain aspects, which I'm going to explain to you shortly. We also have Caleb from MOHT. And then the final speaker of the day is Bjorn, who's the CEO of Mindfi. Now, just to give you a quick context of the seriousness of the issue that we are facing, if there is actually one positive outcome from the pandemic, I would personally attribute it to the awareness around mental wellness. So earlier, mental health was categorized as an individual or an employee's prerogative. But the good thing post-pandemic, there is finally a realization that mental wellness is indeed a business and HR imperative. So I'm sure all of you have recently seen the NTUC Learning Hub's special report on mental wellness. Some very, very interesting information about the Singapore workplace. So 44% of the employees say that they experience stress at their workplace, either frequently or all the time, 44%. And interestingly, the top reasons, that they have cited for declining mental well-being, heavier workload, lack of interaction with colleagues, which I hope is ending from yesterday. And then this blurred lines between work and personal life. That's why experts of today's rephrased the work-life balance to work-life integration. So we need to provide a lot of support to the employees. A lot of HR teams asked us this question. We know the importance of employee mental wellness, but we don't know where to start. Are there free resources? Our bosses will not approve any budgets for employee health and wellness. Are there any free resources from the government which we can leverage? All these questions, what are other companies doing? So these are the questions that we are going to be really covering today. And before I hand it over to the speakers, I just want to highlight this to you, right? All of you are IHRP professionals, certified professionals. Log on to Ihrp Connect, and you can use the QR code to connect. And you have this excellent repository, which has been put together by IHRP, the Workplace Safety and Health Council, and the National Healthcare Group. So this actually has a repository of a lot of information around health and well-being. So please log on to it. And then this is what is the agenda for today. Most importantly, right, I would request all of you to please turn on your cameras. Okay, this is not a one-way meeting, but this is actually a masterclass, an interactive masterclass, where we really want you to interact with the participants. If you have queries, ask them. If you have questions, any point of time, please feel to put it in the chat box. But the request is turn on your cameras. It's really important to have that connect. And then Marion would be handling the first part of this session. She's going to talk about person-centric HR, some common mental health challenges that you will face in the workplace. As a HR leader, where to intervene, where not to intervene, and simple, free, easy ways to embark on the mental wellness journey. And Caleb is going to talk to you about all the free resources that the Singapore government has put forth for enterprises to leverage. So he's going to talk to you about that and what employers are doing and how you can leverage these initiatives. And finally, Bjorn from Mindfi is going to talk about how traditional EAPs, what are the advantages, disadvantages, and then going to talk about how tech is disrupting mental wellness, the next gen work employee wellness program. How does it look like? He's going to share case studies and best practices from his clients. So it's going to be a quite session today, very very exhaustive session when it comes to embarking on mental wellness journey for each one of us. So with that, I think the stage is now clearly set, and I'm still waiting for a lot of you to turn on your cameras. Okay, so please feel free to do that. And let me now hand it over to Marion. And as informed earlier, this is an interactive masterclass and not one of your boring office meetings where you go on a audio mode. Okay, having said that, over to you, Marion.
Thank you, Siram, and thank you everyone here for investing some time in yourself and your organizations. I am going to actually insist you switch on your videos, because one of the main things I'm trying to do today with you is to practice role modeling of ourselves so that we can better be able to role model for our people in our teams and our organizations. So one time at the beginning, and then we can all go and hide again and come back again, but it'll be nice to see your face. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So let me just start with something very clear. We are all human first. So we're going to take 3 deep breaths as one community of humans, and then we will align ourselves to give ourselves this time together, which is precious. Okay, so 1 deep breath. 2 deep breath. And then 3rd deep breath. In a day, we have more than 50,000 thoughts. The fact that some of us have not fully arrived here or couldn't find the password and everything else is part of the many thoughts we have in a day. And one of the challenges we have, given our roles and given the roles of everybody around us, is some of these thoughts seem real. They seem as if they're going to overwhelm us and make us very frustrated, very angry, and very challenged. And these thoughts come and go. So if you're looking at thoughts like this, they come, they stay, they go. They come, they stay, they go. If I was in an accident this morning and it was threatening my life, I would be like this. And obviously I cannot think anything else but the accident. If, however, I was in a near-miss accident, it will be like this, and then it will slow down and go away, right? This is a human condition we have. We have thoughts, more than 50,000 thoughts in a day. Out of more than 50,000 thoughts in a day, 80% of them are negative thoughts. This doesn't make you a negative person. All of us have predominantly negative thoughts. That's because we are built to prepare to be eaten or beaten. Okay, I'm setting all this context for you now, so that as you feel your way through what I'm going to share with you, you understand where your thoughts are coming from. Okay, for some of us, if I say the word cancer, if you are a cancer survivor, or you have a family member with cancer, or your family member passed of cancer, like myself, my mom and my dad. But for some people, that word would not matter. Right? For some people, when I say mother-in-law, this happens. I hope there's a joke you can take, right? Mother-in-law. Of course, for some people, their mother-in-law is not a threat, and that's fine. You know that if you all don't laugh, my quality of presentation goes down. It's just like that. It's a social emotional thing here. Thank you, some laughing people. Good. You get where I'm going, right? Okay. So one more time, 50,000 thoughts and more in a day. 80% are negative thoughts, not because you're negative, because of the way we are wired for fighting and protection, right? Thoughts come, thoughts go. Thoughts are not real. However, they make you feel in your body a real threat. Okay? The first thing I'm going to say is, in the chat box, ask me the question you've always wanted to ask a psychologist, but never got a chance to ask. Because today, this 1 hour, no charge, for free, between close friends, I'm going to open the cupboard and show you everything inside. But you don't ask now, I will charge. I'm about $500 an hour. I'm not kidding you. That's individual. When you ask me to do a presentation, it's up to $2,500 for 1 hour. Okay, so write down now. I know some of you don't want to share, it's personal. Just say, one of my friends got this problem. Fantastic, just do that. Please, I expect 5 questions in the chat box before we begin. Ask away. I'm your psychologist in your pocket. What is a pressing psychologist problem you want me to answer? And then as I go on, please continue getting some questions in the chat box. Okay, I am now going to wait and breathe while I wait for some questions. If you have no questions, you can also say things like, hey, Marion, how come so many people divorcing now? Hey, Marion, how many suicides have you seen a day? Thank you. 1, 2, very good. That's going well. Sorry, nowadays I see suicide quite often. That's the first answer. Okay. Some more? 2 questions only. Keep it going. 3. Wonderful numbers. 1, 2, 3. Very good. 2 more. This is my last presentation on this platform in this agency, just so you know. Siram did a good job of trying to court me, but I only can do so much. So please ask your questions. 2 more, and then we'll start. And if you don't have questions you want to ask me like this, write it down and email me, because I want you all to get your answers from me one time. I love you all. We will start. And I'll answer the questions along the way. Good. Yes. Right. Siram, the PowerPoint, please. Okay. Okay. Let me give you some context myself. If you do not know, you know. I am a human being that loves teaching. So I went to MOE and I was sponsored to be on scholarship to PSC. So I'm one of those scholars, right? Only challenge was, as I taught more and more, I found more of my students coming to me crying, not because of academic, but something else in their life, really complex. And as a teacher, they never taught me to counsel. So I took a diploma in counseling. So I was a teacher, took a diploma in counseling, and realized I do not want to be a counselor because I'm not good with so many sad things told to me every day. That is one of the journeys of a caregiver like yourself, who have people coming to you and sharing a lot of stories. So I decided to call myself a prevention specialist. Hence, I do prevention work in the community and educate people like yourself, leaders and teachers and peer supporters, so that they can support people in crisis before the crisis happens. I have a master's in human development and psychology from Harvard. I have a diploma from NIE in teaching. I have a diploma in counseling from Temasek Poly. I'm blessed to be taught by the forerunners of counseling in Singapore. I believe counseling should be culture specific, community grounded. And I will share with you some of these ideas, and please ask me questions along the way. I will pause every 15 minutes to answer as many questions as I can to keep it real for you. Right? So next slide. The first thing you must understand, and you know this well as HR, is every person is different. One of the most major challenges of every person being different is, guess what? You cannot guess what they're thinking. You can only see what happens outside of their thinking. That means how it presents itself. Now that presents a major problem in its beginning because we never see until it's too late. One of the challenges of prevention specialists is, I cannot help until it's too late. And then when it's too late, it's really too late, right? So one of the things I need you to remember always is it's not thinking, it is psychological. And today, all my slides are about psychology, not just logic. Logic, you and I can agree. Psychology, we almost can never agree. And one of the challenges of anyone trying to help HR is we cannot generalize. Psychologists, pure psychology, will never generalize. We are studiers of human behavior. So I need a context and a group, and I have to spot. For example, I'm a school psychologist. I'm a hospital organizational psychologist, not even people, right? I'm an addiction specialist. So when we speak, we don't generalize because we study human behavior in one context. HR, you have to generalize across a whole large span of humans. Hence, your main challenge with me and you is I can only speak in generalizations, but specific with data. And you have to come back to me and tell me what is your population like. In particular, I work very good with peak performers. I work very good with engineers, scientists, anyone that the language you don't understand because they're too technical, I am very good. But food and beverage, hospitality, I may not understand that industry as well, because that's the difference of the whole context. Okay, so get that somewhere, write it down. Always remember there's context and paradigms. And your first question is why or what are they thinking? Don't analyze further. Just get what they're saying out somewhere. Okay. So next slide. Now, I can only promise you what should be foundational HR policies. I am not going to say what is best practice. I don't like that word. There's no best human practice. It is practices. If it works for you, please continue. If it doesn't work for you, let's review today. I am from the School of Medicine. So over the last 1 year, I become kind of a doctor. See this doctor? But my doctor is the doctor of the heart, right? Boom, 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 right? So precision medicine means we actually want to spot where exactly is the largest pain point and fix that first with the right treatment, right dosage, right? And right medication. I am going to go through your HR lifespan with you with the eyes of a psychologist, right? Precision medicine. That's what we can do today. And of course, you have a generation that's never been seen before. You have the largest, diverse age and post-COVID and COVID still and war generation. I totally empathize with the situation you have. Okay, so we'll talk about all these. Be honest, be real. 1 hour. Next slide. It is not Siren's fault that I will not be giving you a template. He said, Marion, they want a template. I said, I also want a template for my life. Okay, in this day and age, no template, we will not be able to because there are so many moving parts. However, we'll give you the recipe and you add your own version. If you don't have chicken, you put duck, right? If you don't have that meat or thing, you put something else. You are okay. 100% answers, if I give you that, I will be misrepresenting, so no 100% answers. And take a deep breath again. There will be no mastery. No matter how many years you've been the best HR person in the entire world of your industry, there's no mastery in this point of time. We are all going towards darkness with a big of a torchlight and we're shining in the darkness. Be trying comfortable with that. Be comfortable with the not sureness. Next slide. Now, one piece of research throughout has shown again and again, if anyone has one caring person in their life, in the teenage work I did, all the at-risk youth, the youth could be in poverty, could be traumatized, abused, but if they have one caring person, one grandmother, one aunt, one neighbor, one something, one teacher in the school, one male teacher in the school, one superintendent, whatever, they feel supported, they'll be fine. That is why loneliness is the first thing HR can tackle the best. Your job is to let your people connect with each other so they can throw the lifeboat out to each other, not always ask you for help. Right? Robert Wallinger, a psychiatrist right at Mass Gen, says very simply, loneliness is a predictor of ill health, smoking, obesity. In Singapore, as well as most parts of India, we have the DISC. If you know DISC, you probably will, right? Old school methodology. Very many of us are introverted and we like to be steady and we also like to be compliant. Few of us are so extroverted, like the westernized psychology stories. So introverted people have like the most 3 very close friends and they talk them one by one at dinner, right? Or at a meal. That's why if one of these friends, hate to say, leaves the world or leaves the workplace, the person goes back into a shell and they find it hard to recreate a new friendship that way, right? So many of Singaporeans are introverted or quieter. You need to help them make friends at the workplace, help make friends, all right? The other thing is they're steady and compliant, and steady people in this point of VUCA world are not steady, right? They want to go back to work, you throw out change policy. They want to do this project, you throw out more budget. They want to go and do this. It is the most tiring part of life now. So if I were to ask you to validate your people, do one thing. Ask them to hang out just for fun. Hang out just to eat. Hang out just to have coffee or drink or meditate together or walk together. Just at because that's core. We did a focus group with healthcare, and one of the words they said there is, my real close friends really validate my sense of me. and my connections in the world. The word validate means if I say something, you say it back to me and I feel seen. I say something, you say it back to me and I feel seen. I have a very lonely job. Many times people tell me a lot of their crises and I cannot share, which is my job as a counselor, as a psychologist. I can get very tired. So when I write these reports and all that, I have a supervisor, right, that looks through, and I have peers in supervision to support me. And then I go out with my friends. I don't bring my psychologist with me. You think I go out, I dress like this? No, like, I don't dress like doctor and walk around. People treat me like doctor. I try very hard not to. Okay? I try to be Marion, right? And just talk about other things, human things. But the thing is, they validate, I get seen. The workplace is a very challenging place. They don't share workplace things at home. They try not to. Home doesn't share workplace. Try to give them a community in the workplace. You are doing this very well. I have no doubt. All right, I'm no doubt. Right? But loneliness is the first pain point. Next slide, please. In the last presentation, which I watched to prepare myself for this presentation, Ms. Natalie Lim, one of the people at NHG, right, National Health Group, she said, teach people to look out for each other, listen, and link. So if you can't help the person, they can find a therapist, they can find a social worker, they can find an industry resource. My colleague Caleb will provide you with many good links that we have collected in our work at MOHT. Right? Now I'm going to pause now to answer some of the questions that you put in front of me on the chat box. If you don't mind, Siram or Caleb, can you read some of the questions, please? So I don't miss out.
Sure. The first question is, since we have so much negative thoughts, how do we minimize or remove them?
Number one, cannot remove. You know, it's like taking out one part of your brain, no? Right? Do you know that people who don't have the prefrontal lobe cortex, that means they have injured their head here, right? Right? This is the amygdala. Amygdala is your natural fight and flight tendency, is your nervous system, right? And this is your prefrontal lobe cortex. It allows for executive decision making. The answer is it's a whole system. You cannot remove all the triggers of the negative thoughts or negative emotions. Impossible. That's part of your biology. So that's why everybody says, remove, minimize. No, dear. No. Okay, sorry. I am one of the most nastiest people in the world in my head. And so are you. So many of my friends are such high achievers, such good people, and they say such negative things about themselves in their own head. Not true. Your thoughts are not true. They're negative. They're like that. They exist. You cannot remove, number one. Minimize, also cannot. Just don't believe them. Okay? I'm going to tell you that you walk in the room and sometimes you just look at the person, you just don't like their face, right? It's not that person's fault, no. Neither is it your fault. It's biological. Maybe they wore the wrong perfume. Reminds you of an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend. Right? Maybe the face reminds you of the ancestor before they hit you on the head. Please do not take your thoughts seriously. So, no remove, no minimize, just be aware. Okay, that's why we did the breath work. Some of the things I'm going to say today will irritate the hell out of you. That's my job. If I don't irritate you, make you uncomfortable, you are not going to learn. But don't blame me. I'm just saying words. If the words affect you, it's because of your own story that you're worried about, right? I repeat, I come in peace. Next question.
How stressed were you during the pandemic? How did you deal with it?
Oh, sorry, this is very hard one, Bjorn. Why are you going to do this? I'm going to be very real. I lost my best friend and 3 other people within 3 weeks. My best friend, and the next day, another friend in Malaysia died. My best friend died from long COVID. He had sleep apnea. He survived COVID in America, but that was the time before the vaccines came out yet. And he died suddenly. I was going to wish him happy birthday and then he died. All right. I was talking to him on chat, so at least I had that last chance. I lost 10 people last year, 1 a month. And that particular month in August, I lost 4. My uncle, my 2 friends from COVID suddenly, and my 1 friend from cancer that he didn't tell people. So we just found out on that week itself. So let me, can I use the bad word? SHIT was my year. And that's why now I'm sharing very comfortably with you what can or cannot be done. So my best lucky for me is I trained myself to be a psychologist, right? Number 1, I saw myself going into depression. We'll talk that more in the slides later. I saw myself not being able to eat, started having gastric, and I started watching myself, and I will tell you, grief comes 3-6 months. If it's not over within 3 to 6 months, you should ask for professional. I look for professional help. Just to tell you again, many grief counselors or counselors in Singapore are not trained for major trauma grief. So mine is major trauma, right? It's not a normal. So I will not answer that in detail yet. We'll go on later. But Bjorn, you are owing coffee now. Okay, okay. Jennifer, or next person, Jerome.
Thank you, Marion, for your honest and exhibiting your vulnerability, which is really important, right? Thank you very much. What is a red flag regarding someone's mental health that most of us tend to miss out?
Actually, it's the introversion. That's why I mentioned it first. I'll give you a good story. My student, when he was Sec 4, my 40-something over boys in my class, I taught SGI, right? Suddenly one boy stopped talking, but I wouldn't know, right? Because I was the teacher, I was very happy they stopped talking in class. No, my class chaplain said, Miss Neubronner, he has stopped going down for recess and stopped talking. And then I found out. And I cannot tell him, right? Because that's not, you don't do intervention like that. Immediately you tell people, watch. What I did was I made a composition about something like, well, it was painful, whatever. I don't know what it was. And he started writing. And my compositions in my class are to continue writing. I believe in the power of journaling a lot. We can talk about that later. And when he started writing, I responded. And we used that as a chat. And that time, we have only this. So I'll ask him questions about stuff on this, right? His mom came for parents-teachers meeting. He didn't talk to his mom in front of me. So that was how bad it had gone. And I started asking him about that. But the main point was my students told me because he was quiet. So introversion, silence, disappearing MCs, not eating, not speaking, number one. And this is the hardest one to do. So that's why everyone should have a buddy, a real buddy, not a buddy show you a seat and then disappear after that. Okay. So if you need to rework your buddy system, please talk to me. You need to rework your peer support system, talk to me. We've done a lot at MOHT on this work. However, number one. Number two, strange movements of emotions. That's another one, right? Suddenly you're very angry. This is definitely high crisis mode. I can't share all, but Jennifer, basically, too much quiet, disappear, and too much emotion suddenly also. Apart from that, we'll talk about the rest later. That's fine. Next one.
Jocelyn, should we apply psychological first aid to everyone or only when someone's seemingly depressed?
You will be overwhelmed. That's the discussion. And Jocelyn, I can answer yours in the slides, so I will do that. Okay, next.
Okay, sure. Is depression a real medical condition that can be treated with medication and counseling? Question mark. Why is it that in the previous generation doesn't seem to experience as much?
This is a very big question. So I will answer this, and then we'll move on, and I'll keep answering as you go along. Yeah, I say every 10 minutes. There's genetic predisposition. That means you're predisposed to have depression because your family has depression. It's some sort of a neural pathway and genetic chemical imbalance. This will probably be helpful if you have medication. There's also depression that I'm going to show you when I told you my friend died, right? Number one, the day he died, I still remember so clearly. It was 11 o'clock when I found out an email. He lives in the US, his sister told me. Obviously, I could not go to sleep. I walked out of the house. It was during a lockdown, and I was walking aimlessly around for some time because I needed to tire myself out, or not I wouldn't sleep. Then I had to call every single friend to tell them. Every time I call and tell them, my heart hurts more. So the answer is, if I was a person trying to see through the death of a loved one, which I was, I can fall into a minor depressive state, given the fact that emotions are strong, my body could not cope, can't eat, can't sleep, right? So I sent myself to live with the brothers, religious brothers in St. Patrick's. So I'm Catholic, and I know who to rely on for support sometimes. I'm single, so I had no family of that, yeah. And that was because I sent myself to live with the brothers. They eat and at the same time, and I'll be fed. If I stay at home, I will not feed myself. It was to form later on. I stopped eating for. Okay, so minor depressive states, if not supported, can go into depression. Means you don't come out of your bedroom, you don't answer calls, you don't eat, you don't sleep, and your body goes into a new state of decline. That can end up to be a depressive cycle in you to create that depression further. But most of the time, it's genetic and there's a predisposition. All right, so we'll talk about that a bit more later as well. I'll move on to the slides again. Remember to stop where we stopped. Sharon, thank you. Next slide. I am not going to talk about happiness and positive psychology and all that because that's easy to be found. I will say one thing. If you want a free resource just to do a survey, the VIA character strengths, you ask your people to do before and after. They don't want to share with you, it's fine. Ask them to share themselves. Many people have done it around the world and it's under positive psychology. So you can basically find it and go and do the VIA. There are many other surveys there. I do not recommend random surveys. I recommend psychologists created surveys. So this one I trust. All right, next slide. Now, what HR sometimes does get wrong is this, okay, leaders as well. The man told the HR, don't celebrate birthday for me. I have social anxiety. They celebrated birthday nonetheless. I'm sure they thought it was a culture building exercise. The man left his birthday party because he was overwhelmed, sat in his car. When he came back another time after that incident, his leaders told him that's inappropriate. How could you blah, blah, blah. He went to another anxiety attack. He went home for a few days. Later on, they could not cope with his range of emotions and decided to fire him. This is where this man sued and got money for this issue. I repeat, what are they thinking? What are they presenting? If anybody, I know you will say, but cannot just they say I'm mental health, then you give them the time off. Isn't that dangerous? What if they all lie to me? I'd rather they let you let them go than you have them in your office when they present. Remember, these are invisible challenges. So remember, if you're going to watch, one of the things I can tell you, oh, you want a template, right? I'll give you a good template. Less than 5% of your population will have real issues. Real issues meaning the ones that can exacerbate into self-harm or harm of others. 5%, less than that. Everybody else means they're sad, please send them a friend. They're sad, please be nice to them. They're sad, please ask the leader to help them out. And then everybody else should be okay. But you said, Marion, the whole COVID, everyone's sad. Yes. So everyone's sad means everyone's sad. Don't force people to be happy. But repeat, less than 5% presenting actual psychological issues. And this is the things that psychologists can't say to you because we will be pigeonholed. Please don't go out and say, Marion said only 5%. Oh, God, that one wrong. Please don't do that. I'm telling you now just for your own indicator. Not sure, reach out. Reach out to a therapist, EAP, or myself, right? But the point is, okay. Now, the most important thing in all this is, number one, sit and listen to them properly. Lead people in mind with their version of the world, their subjective nature of the issue, not yours. Never yours. In particular, HR has to advocate for this, right? Advocate for this. I have been bullied. I have been gender discriminated against many times. And of course, the system would not know because they got all up there like that, right? Then say, why are other people not upset? You upset. Sorry, that's a different person with a different issue. And to be honest, a lot of bullying and discrimination is a power issue, not about my psychological state. No matter how strong I am psychologically, if the powers that we continue to be challenging the person. Yeah. Next slide, please. So now, this is the part that I want you to pay attention to and ask me real questions again. I'm going to give you a direct line of how to spot, what to spot. Yeah. So the first one, disposition means you have a recurrent behavioral cognitive thinking or emotional feeling that distinguishes one person from another. Some people smell durian and cannot get excited, they want to vomit. Some people smell durian and get excited, want to eat. Nothing to do with the person, to do with the disposition. Personal disposition is a trait. Perfectionism is personal disposition. All right. Normally, it's like a cardinal, which is really very strong, right? So you heard about all these leaders who are narcissists because they're so good at putting themselves first and sometimes ignoring other views. That's why they get up higher sometimes, right? These are central dispositions drive us good at our work sometimes, right? But remember, it's also very character driven. Then there's secondary dispositions, right? So conscientious, narrow, cleaning desk. Reminder, the things that brought you here are also your strengths. But when your strengths become your weakness, that's the danger. All leaders think everybody's the same as them, they're not, right? All HR, hate to say, sometimes think that everyone's a textbook case, they're not, right? Next slide. This is the one I want you to write, and I put the acting definition here. In a critical incidence, this means in a lifespan stage, there will be some things that will be more obvious. For me, currently, as mentioned, my friends are in a certain age group range where they are caregivers of their parents as well, caregivers of the children, and many of the parents, because of our fantastic longevity ability here, are living with, unfortunately, illness. This is the period of life with the double burden, right? The sandwich generation of the X generation. Whereas a younger person, right, from 0 to 12, should not have a critical incidence of that much heaviness, unless a parent dies, unless they're chronically sick, or unless there is a criminal offense against a child that causes a trauma. Right? So one more time, for you as HR, watch your people. From 21 to 31, what could be issues? Career, right? Maybe marriage. From 31 to 41, what could be challenges? Right? Maybe infertility, wanting to have a family, divorce, who knows? These are the ones you watch for. Everything else, to be fair to Jocelyn that asked, right? Sometimes you have to relax, because if you take care of everybody, you are going to get overwhelmed, right? So you have to watch for critical incidents. Peer support, clear. Peer support, people together. Now, this definition from MHT is a working healthcare definition. Here, I'll just say supporting each other in their mental health journey. And intervention is where you get involved, not you. Train professionals, okay? Train professionals, counselor, social worker, police, psychologists. Next slide. Now, why I show you all this? Ta-da! My template for you. If the person has a high disposition to depression, high disposition to anxiety, like that person in the example, when a critical incident gets nearer, they're going to act out. That's when you do the intervention. Before that, there should be a lot of peer support so that we can remove them for their emotion. When I say remove, doesn't mean take away. Remove means distract them for the emotion long enough so that it doesn't wire. Okay, now I'm going to show you an example. If every time I get triggered, so I was bullied at work, so my boss that was bullying me would walk down the office, and if I see this person, I get triggered, right? I could possibly start avoiding this person for the rest of my career. That is a negative habit, right? That is a negative. So let's say I have this bully boss, right? If a colleague sees me and knows the situation and works with me, or works me, right, or we change my job so that I don't sit anywhere near this particular trigger, this would ease my emotional trigger. That means I will not go into a long-lasting trauma state. That is what your peer support is doing. Okay, so for example, if there was ever, and I'm not cursing anyone, ever a fire in your workplace, obviously you would change all the furniture, change all the triggers, so you don't see fire everywhere. If your people came in from a fire that hurt them and they see fire indicators again, they're gonna get traumatized. This is basic logic. Yeah. Okay. So next slide. So what you can do if you're worried about a person, you can give them the ACE to test and check whether they have predispositions, right? Again, this should be personal, not for you. You yourself might want to be aware of it so you understand. If you're worried, again, for the person who doesn't present, you can use the ACE for yourself, and knowing what you know the person, make a list for yourself to prepare. Just like I knew about my student and I made a list. Next slide, please. The lifespan is clear. Like I said, across a whole lifespan, things happen and change. That one is clear, everyone knows that. We are going to go through lifespan in the next few slides. Okay? Yeah. So this is what will happen. If a critical incident happens, they are, I tell you, maximum 2 to 3 for a normal person, right? And then what happens? Normal meaning average human life that is not traumatized. Yeah? That's what I meant, not normal anyways. If you're chronically ill, you will always have a challenge with critical incidents because all the time it is an extra layer of me. If you're a double minority, woman and then a minority group race, right? In Singapore or other parts of the world, or transgendered and a minority group race. This is a challenge all throughout your life because of the trauma of externals. So once you know where these could happen, your job, you as HR, is to push a little below there. So if they fall softly. Or if they're going to fall, they feel supported. That's all you can do. You can never take the place of the person. But you can push a pillow there so they fall softly, or before they fall, you can lend a hand to pull them up. I will look through some more questions now. Do you mind reading the questions again, sir?
Sure, Marion. Sorry. How do we deal with the internal anger towards kids and spouse?
Whose internal anger to whose kids and whose spouse? So the answer very simple. Everything to do with your own emotion is self-awareness and self-regulation. So I'm going to be very honest. Everyone should be running or swimming or exercising, every one of us, okay? If you sit too long, you're all going to get all these emotions stuck inside you. And the story we always tell, you go home, right? If your boss is, sorry, please don't take seriously, not healthcare stuff like that. Doctor, senior doctor scream at a young resident, right? The resident go home, who they scream at? Okay, very simple. They scream at the person in the house, mother, daughter, best friend, anybody, doesn't matter. I'll give you a good example, right? Every time we go home, where does the anger go? So the best story is, please run, please swim, please do some sort of jumping jacks before you enter your house. If you tire yourself out, the emotion goes out. If you keep, it will stay. Then you can say, but they are irritating. My people in the home are irritating. They love you. You love them. Sorry, that's the irritation price of love. Okay. Next question.
Okay. What happens when you see someone looking stressed in a meeting? How do you try to support, or what can you offer as support?
Sorry, every meeting I have is stress. I'm in healthcare. So the answer is, first, you see them stressed. Remember, they're adults. They can take care of themselves first. If you suspect they're junior staff that cannot word it, you might want to ask them later what was the trigger. Never ask them why they're stressed. What was the trigger? Okay, so it could be a word, it could be a fear, and talk them through that. Don't pause meetings yet. You want to pause meeting, then pause everybody at the same time and say, let's all take a deep breath now. Okay, let's all take a deep breath now. Okay, I feel stressed, you say. I feel stressed. I feel the room is needing some relaxation. Let's take a deep breath now. And you can keep doing that because biologically, there is no harm to breathing. Biologically, that's all. It's also to cut this. If a person feels stressed, this is what happens. The only way you can break this is never go in and stop the hand. Okay, never. You go in by asking them to take a deep breath. And in all yoga technique, they say, calm the body, calm the mind. Calm the body, calm the heart. You cannot talk a person out of their stress. Repeat, you cannot talk a person out of their stress. You can only calm them with their biological calmness, which they can do themselves. But to answer you, thank you for being so empathetic to read people's emotions. Be very careful. You don't okay. Next slide. Okay, just a minute. And I will answer the rest on chat if I don't get them then. Yeah, let's go. For serum. Okay, let's go. Yay. Okay, can you see my screen? Yes. Yeah, okay. He's supporting me because my computer is haywire. Next slide. Yeah, you got that. Right. So these slides are all yours. I am going to talk through what you're going to do. If you think this is an important slide for you, you want to stay, you put up your hand, okay? So good. So the first one is very simple. Women and their monthly challenges are invisible. But let me assure you they're painful. So you can look at the slide resource there about what companies are doing to give women and men who have invisible challenges their mental health day off or health day off. Again, this is your discretion. I cannot tell you how. Yeah. Next slide. This is quite obvious now. So one of the things that's happening with this remote work and all these extra things is everyone look as if they're slightly cray-cray, right? I'm here, I'm there, I'm heavy bear. You know, everybody's worried about me because the way I thought is as if I've got 3 people inside me. That's because I have 3 different portfolios. So the point is they have to manage themselves. They actually present early on. You will see they're unable to manage certain projects. They're not this way of thinking. So people who are very conscientious, who are normally leaders, get very irritated with ADHD tendencies because they seem here, there, everywhere. Again, everything to do with eating and anything outside, you can't do it much as HR. However, you should ask the friends again and buddies to watch, because then you might want to put a special circular out about different challenges people might face and where they can reach out to resources. I'm just going to one thing though. Self-harm, let me clarify. Yeah? Self-harm is the act of actually taking something and cutting. Normally, if they're self-harming, they don't want you to know. So they'll cut at their thighs, so it's covered by pants or skirts. They'll cut at their jackets, they'll wear long sleeve, right? Like as if they're hiding something. My teenage boys would cut themselves and wear a jacket to school, even when it's very hot, and I knew, right? Self-harm is not the same as suicide tendencies. Be very aware. I've done quite a lot of research into this and spoken to them. When you are very repressed and you want to say something against a superior person like parent or boss, and you don't want to get in trouble, you cut yourself actually as a way of control over your own body. And in cutting, just so you know, there's a power to being in control of your own body. And there's also a release of endorphins when it's cut and released. So it's a game people play. It's almost like, smoking weed. It's almost like taking yourself out of your body and then bringing yourself back to your body. Self-harm is actually an act of trying to survive and coping. It may not be the act you choose, but many people do have this act. Okay? Next slide. And remember to put out your hand if you want me to stop. Now, eating disorder, to be honest, all of us have it. We either eat too much or eat too little, or eat or drink things you shouldn't be eating or drinking all the time. I'm not going to say what and how, okay? To answer back Bjorn's question just now, sorry dear, I'm rushing. I drank, I must admit, and many of my friends who could be drank, and that's why alcohol consumption increased during COVID. NTUC also told me, my friend who works there, premium ice cream also increased, premium desserts also increased. And the idea is you're trying to get a short-term pleasure to distract you from the long-term pain. That's fine, because it does, remember, if I eat something very nice, I do forget for a while. If I drink, I forget, then I fall asleep. It, however, is a long-term damage on your health. And also, to be fair, it could lead to addiction. And there were some people I know that drinking, they forgot meetings and stuff like that. So I'm just being aware. Now with outside restrictions released, I hope everyone should be going back to health. And I suggest you help people get healthier with more of your health discussions and healthy eating and drinking. I mean, water and all that, yeah? Next. This is what you asked me several times, and this is the one I would say. And more often it will be in women. Men have depression, they don't verbalize. So these are things you should watch out for. All these slides came from Mayo Clinic, so I'm not making any of them up. Now you say as a HR, what can you do? Number one, you can do nothing if they don't want you to help them. That's why the first thing you're going to say is, there is support, confidential, anonymous support. Please reach out. Number two, what you can do again, and this all your peers, all your support, all your friends, all your communities, get everyone in some sort of community event, sports, or building something together so you can watch them. Remember, the answer is look, listen, link. The answer is not go in and save them. HR and any other leader are very powerful people. Please don't try to save people. They can drown you as well. If a person wants to die, they will choose their method of death. This is not me being funny, this is me being very clear, because your job is to keep them from self-harm, but keep them also from harming others. So far, so good. So depression, as I said, there's genetic and there's non-genetic. I suggest you look into the non-genetic ones, aka thriving and surviving. You can Google these words in positive psychology. No loss here. All right. Next slide. Postpartum, unfortunately, has numbers that have increased both in Malaysia and Singapore, so has suicide. A general temperament that is a very normal place, calm temperament, in this period of war, COVID, loss of job, a lot of insecurity, it will be very triggered. And just so we are clear again, any suicide normally has a suicide history in the family. So you do not choose suicide from nowhere. It is a tendency that someone in your family uncle or someone else could have done the same solution, and you think of it as a way out. Suicide is a very logical way out for many people in their head of a psychological pain. I repeat, no pain is that difficult. It's just coping with the pain. And some people do not want to cope with the pain, and so they choose that means of going. In many countries that are very repressed, people who are of alternative lifestyle choices tend to use this as a methodology as well. And people who are very focused on certain religion that cannot choose to end themselves don't do it. And the people who have religions that are not so prescriptive will suicide more because it's not seen as anti-religion for them. I don't need to explain this to you. You can Google this all day. Next slide. Now, this is the one I'm most concerned about. Okay, I'm going to say this very honestly. Please don't misquote me. I have many, many older men who lose their jobs and lose their identity because their job for them is their identity. For many women, in many ways, because they have communities like their religious communities or their friends, like the Japanese women who live to very long ages, they have a community of friends that every morning they just check in. And women sometimes express emotions out in conversation, men do not. I suggest you look out for all your men above 45 to 60, any man above 50, right? Because of the two challenges in Singapore, the fear of losing a job and not having a job after 50, and the need for men to look very stoic and strong, which is a ridiculous societal stereotype that still persists in the generation baby boomer and X. Do you understand, right? So this is one concern I have that I will remind you of. And when men decide to suicide, they succeed most of the time. And for women who try to suicide, they'll take pills or they might try to cut themselves and they do not succeed. And they usually do it in front of some community. Men are very solitary, clear-minded when they do it. The regrettable part is a suicide. I call it like a bomb because the emotional impact of a suicide on any company is huge. A lot of guilt, a lot of worry, a lot of sadness, a lot of viewing HR and leaders with very suspicious eyes, so I would suggest men 45 to 50 and above, please start talking to them. Just ask them how they are. Check their social networks. Check what they do in the evening. Not check like policemen, you know what I mean? But check, yeah? Ask and send them a friend. Okay, send them a friend, send them career pathing outside of the workplace, yeah? Okay, next slide. Right, I want to play this game and then we'll end, okay? Because the other slide, okay, you see all these words? Do you know what they mean? Because these are the new, very comfortable words of psychology that everybody talks about nowadays. Okay, let's try again. I'm going to pick one and then you tell me what it means in the chat, okay? If I say we're enmeshed, so column 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're enmeshed. Tell me what that means. Yes, that one. We're enmeshed. E-N-M-E-S-H-E-D. I chose a difficult one. Anybody know? Nope, not. Entangled, yes, near entangled. Keep going. Enmeshed means what? No, no quality.
Codependent.
Very much codependent. Very much. Okay, let me explain. Very nice. See, why I need to tell you this. Okay, all of you who are parents, this is a very real story. Be careful, be aware. When a mother has children and the eldest child is close to them, and a father or mother, sorry, I keep generalizing, but this case study is real, it's a mother and a son, okay? The father is busy working, whatever, and the mother doesn't feel hurt or feels is complaining about the father, maybe financial. They choose their child to complain to, and the child becomes the parent co-listener, otherwise known as two become one, in a not healthy manner. Because the husband and wife should be talking to each other, right? Emotionally. But because one is absent, the other parent choose a child to become close to and talk badly about the other parent, understand? So this is no good for the child. The child grows up thinking they're the parent. They feel bad about the other parent and they try to become like the parent and take care of the house. No good. And for the dependent person, obviously, not the equal balance of power, neither is it right. So enmesh means you and another person, it could be your mother, it could be your father, it could be you are too much. I'll give you a good example. I was caregiver to my mom, and my mom and dad died, and I was caregiver to both of them. I saw them both breathe their last breath in my own home. I'm proud to say that because that's why I know what it means to be a caregiver, right? And one of the challenges I had, seriously, which was regrettable, is every time my mom was in pain, I feel the pain. Because I become like her, right? I felt I want to save her from her pain or cancer. I cannot. So I had to learn compassion thinking because I was being empathic like y'all. And what happens when you're empathic is you feel almost the same thing. That's not a good place. That's why I chose enmesh. I want you all to be able to remove yourself from the other person. You are not the person. You cannot save them from their pain. You cannot take their pain for them. You are separate from. Use compassionate eyes to look at the situation and make things better. Okay. You can send, I will send you all these other real meanings later, but the point is, please start talking like this and learning the new cycle speak. Yeah. Next slide. You can play this later. Yeah. So I already mentioned this. You all got that part already. So we're not going to go through that, right? How the men cope or people cope. Next slide. Caregiving. Okay, let's go back. The ones that are empty, go back up, the caregiving. Or is it divorce first? Okay, divorce first.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So divorce, I'm going to be real. There will be divorce. A lot. Sorry. And that's not because of anything but the fact that people who didn't want to stay married before now want to remove themselves because of the COVID situation. This is normal. Maybe you want to have more divorce, not counseling. Divorce things to talk about, meaning property division, children. So don't talk directly about divorce, talk about the care of a divorce journey. And again, not HR job, but you could send resources or bring someone in for a lunchtime discussion on the impact of divorce on children, blah, 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 and how to manage. It's not as bad as you think. The children are manageable after that, but most children of divorce don't trust relationships that much. So that's the real issue of that challenge, yeah? And those who recover from divorce will be very lonely again. So please send in reinforcements. Next. This one you do very well. I will not answer. That's why I blank. Okay, next one. This one you probably do very well, and we have enough resources. Singapore cares a lot about this issue. So I'm going to leave Caleb and the rest of you talk about this as well. Next one. This one, fun fact just for you. One of the things people always say, I can't give them extra money, I can't give them emotional help, I can give them time off. Flexibility and time off is the HR's only, not only, but main thing, right? Give it to them. However, remember, don't let them be lonely. So no matter what you do, they must feel connected first before you release them. Or not, they'll be disengaged. When I was being bullied, I was very disengaged from my job. I almost quit a few times because I didn't see a reason to stay in an organization that I didn't feel supported in. Next slide. Yes, I think you all need to be aware. Go back up, sorry, suicide. Just read this and be aware. Okay, I just want you to be aware. One more thing though, remember dispositions. So creative people who are in the margins of work, if they are artists, media, gig economy, please watch them even more. Vendors, contract staff, because to them, their life is not that stable and they could have not enough support. So you say, but I don't take care of my vendors. They're not mine, I know. But could you be a bit more welcoming and holistic in your approach? Because these are the very vulnerable ones. Yeah, that's all. Next slide. Okay, this is fantastic. Just so you know, if you and I are now here, we can live to at least 86 for women and 82 for men in Singapore. And the generation after us will live to 100. This is not me making up. This is the new science. Hence, we should not be thinking about retirement. We should be thinking about relearning, revisiting, and reinvention. And the most important part, guess what? Some of them should start new companies as they grow older. Because of the wealth of information they learned, and they can use it in another sector. Please join healthcare for new inventions and new innovations. Please join, right? Because startups are the way for the aging people to also be part of the new generation. So do not kick them out and say that's done. Always give them something to hope for. Yeah. And just so you know, the generation before thinks of retirement. You and I should not be thinking of retirement. We should be thinking of reinvention. Right? Next slide. Done. Breathe more, free. Sleep more, free. Walk in the forest more, we get free. Build more pauses, free. And finally, the last part. I am going to say to you that you all are talking to me in Mandarin, so I can't concentrate. Okay, one more time. I'm going to say to you, stop trying to prevent so much if you cannot. Some of it will be intervention. It is not your job. That's why we want you to go and reach out to therapists, social workers, etc. But if you want to do prevention, please choose something that you can do. Don't overstretch yourself, right? Talk to your leaders first, talk to your resources first, then start. And then launch again a good program, one good one, just very peer support, loneliness and friends, just that level. Yep, that's all I think. Thank you. Yep, I will answer the chat. Oh, see, good timing. I will answer the chat in the chat. Thank you. I'm still here after this. Yeah.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Marion. I mean, it took a pandemic for us to start having these dialogues. So I really think the pandemic has helped in one way, but it has accelerated a lot of problems. I'm going to just take the next 2 minutes and request all of you to use the chat box and put in one key learning from Marion's session. And that's going to be really important because then we will have 55 learnings that we are going to be sharing. My colleague Svecha is actually putting together all the questions. We'll collate all these responses. We will share it with you. You got 55 learnings from just 1 hour. So please use the chat box. I'm going to share my key takeaways. First one, social networks is the panacea of loneliness, right? So introvertedness is an issue in most Asian communities. And we tend to get confused with that. Social networks is definitely the panacea, right? Number two, we learned the difference between thriving and surviving. Number three, you know, as HR folks, our focus is to provide resources for people to leverage, as many resources for leverage. She beautifully explained to you about peer support, intervention. If you try to do a professional intervention for everyone, like the questions where, you know, if someone is stressed in a meeting, what do I do? If you try to provide intervention to everyone, that's going to be really difficult. Provide them resources which they can depend to. Number four, we talk about human-centric decision-making, design thinking, whatever it is, it's person-centric HR. As HR teams, let's not ask for templates. This is psychology. We can't have templates. We really need to go specific to the person-centric HR, right? And then learn compassion thinking. We always talk about empathy, right? Empathy a lot, and we get stressed out more than the other person. So let's sometimes talk about compassion thinking, especially in a caregiving scenario that Marion was talking about. And finally, the most important thing from a Singapore perspective, right? Relearning, re-innovation, reinvention, learning has to continue. There's basically no retirement. That's the key takeaways. I've shared this mind. I hope all of you will share your takeaways in the chat box in the next 30 seconds. Fantastic, Jocelyn. Thank you very much for kickstarting it. Okay. Maybe while others respond, can we quickly answer a couple of questions, Marion, so that you know, one of the questions.
Yeah, which one you want answer? I'll answer. I'm answering now as well. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this question, right? Any survival tips for parents who are anxious because of the new PSLE system? Okay.
Ayo, if you're anxious for PSLE, okay, I'm going to say this, you're only going to make your child very, very sensitive to all type of trauma moving forward. Okay, if I were all of us, and we should, is every day we all should wake up, look at COVID news and look at the war and learn that this doesn't affect us. It affects the state of the world and children, and you are empowered to do something about it. PSLE is the least of our worries nowadays, right? So whenever your child wears the mask or they take care of their parents or their grandparents or that, that's where you focus your time on. When you teach a child that they can do anything and they have all the resources in the world to overcome any challenge, PSLE is just a challenge to overcome, right? But yes, I understand that it matters there's a paper, right? But you and I know by now, the paper is just a paper and they will do well, right? So I'm a teacher for many, many years. I tell you what happens. I'm going to show you, you'll be very worried. PSLE is primary 6, primary 4, primary 5. What you think about PSLE? Can you imagine all those years they can play? What they're thinking about? PSLE. They see the mother open the mouth, PSLE. They see the teacher open the mouth, PSLE. You know why my boys hate me when I was a teacher? They see woman, they say, she's gonna nag about PSLE or nag about. Okay. So answer is, try to remember that you are the real important person. The exam cannot be always coming out of the mouth. In positive psychology, for every negative thing, there should be 3 to 5 positive things you say. So if you're all going to be worried about the exam, I suggest you say 5 beautiful things to your child first, then ask them about the exam and everything else. Number 2, the teachers also are on our group, Caleb and I work with MOE. You know how tired the teachers are? So you all please relax. Okay, relax, breathe more. And yes, if you're upset about PSLE some more, talk to me. This is what I will help, because it's education. It is not mental health. Education is not mental health. Huh? Don't make education part of the stress of mental health. It's actually a joy to be educated. Sorry. Can you see I'm on the bandwagon? Don't ask me to start.
Fantastic responses. Gratitude journal is the summary. I have one final question. Adam, it's a question from Adam, and this is something which personally I have felt it, right? How do you manage employees who share that they are overwhelmed with work at their workplace? How best to address this?
Say always the same. People, this is their emotion. So emotions are real, thoughts are not. So I'm going to be very honest. Overwhelm is a word, right? It's not emotion. So be very careful. People can say, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm jealous, I love you. These are core love emotion words, emotion. I'm overwhelmed is not a word of emotion. Overwhelmed is overthinking about something. So they're saying literally, I'm going to say what they say. I'm very tired. Sleep more. I'm very frustrated and angry with the things because I don't like to do them. I hear you. I understand you don't like it. The leaders are doing this and this. We're all not going to like some things. If you choose, that's how it could be. The anger is okay. The tiredness is okay. The word overwhelm doesn't exist. Work is work, right, people? Just so you know, work is work, right? You understand, right? So work is work. And I hate to say, remember, I'm healthcare. Unless your people are going to die tomorrow or die within the hour, most of us very born people, we have learned to rest, come back up, rest, come back. So the answer to that person is, tell them, what do you need me to do to help you to rest more or support you more? And come back again if you're feeling frustrated and we can talk. But please, I think you're able to manage. And I'm sorry you feel overwhelmed. Full stop. Okay, emotions, not thinking. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Marion. That's a great segue for Caleb's presentation. Over to you, Caleb. Okay, and before I hand it over to Caleb, one more request. Time to turn on your cameras. You need to keep reinforcing the same thought. Time to reinforce you. Time to unlock your cameras and have that one-to-one connect, please.
Yep. So like what Sriram mentioned, I'm going to try to look at everyone and see if I can see everyone's faces. But that was a really insightful session by Marion. I think personally, my takeaway is that there are a lot of invisible illnesses that happen in the workplace. And I think as human resource practitioners, we should all be mindful of that and try our best to support them as much as we can. So hello, everyone. My name is Caleb. I don't come from a psychology background. I'm public health trained. So my session is going to be slightly different. So it's not going into so much of psychology, so much of mental health, but I'm going to talk to you more a bit about, from a macro point of view, how do you start your organizational well-being journey? How do you, if you are thinking of planning something in your workplace, how do you start? What are the things that you have to do? What are some of the other things that employers are doing? So that's going to be the crux of my session today. I have 30 minutes, so and of course I'll stay to the end for the Q&A session. If you have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to share on the chat board. I'll be keeping a lookout for them. And then, I also saw some of the questions which I'll try to answer them as well during my presentation. So here we go. So a few things that I will be talking about today. Just to check, Sriram can see my slides, right? Okay, good. So yes. A few things today. So embarking on your organizational journey, like I mentioned earlier, are some examples of what other employers are doing, barriers to addressing emotional well-being challenges, and also what are some of the things that government is doing to help everyone. Okay. I'll have two short exercises today. We want this to be a very hands-on activity. So I hope that all of you can participate as well. So firstly, okay, putting all of this aside, I know this is a very busy slide, but what I want to introduce to you and follow me as I go along, right? So what you see here on the screen is called the organizational well-being journey. So I spent the last decade of my life doing well-being consulting, talking to companies, sharing about how you can improve well-being in an organization. And like what Sriram mentioned earlier, COVID-19 did put a spotlight on employee well-being. It did help me keep my job. That's very important, right? So now I have more jobs to do, right? But what you see here is something that together with some of my colleagues in the past, we developed a framework. And as consultants, we develop frameworks all the time. It's no rocket science, to be honest. But what you see here is really a graph, right? That we try to put employers and organizations into different buckets. From the left, you see things like Earth, Moon, Star, and Sun. So there is some level of progression from the left to right. And I want to take you through, each different row. So let's focus. And if you can follow my pointer, I'm going to try and use my pointer. Can you guys see my pointer?
Not yet.
Okay. Let me try this one. Okay, I'm going to draw on the screen. Okay. What now? They cannot see, right? Oh, right. Sorry, this one. Oops. Okay, apologies. I think the annotation is not working for me. But what I want to do now is that I want to focus your attention on the left columns. So you see things like leadership, governance, programs, and data. And throughout our research, right? So these are the sort of 4 key building blocks of any organization's well-being journey. So if you look at the first row, and if you think about it in a progressive manner, an Earth company. So let's just name them Earth, Moon, Star, and Sun. An Earth company would have sort of HR driving everything. Their leadership is pretty much not involved. Maybe they would know, but they probably wouldn't participate. As you move up the ladder, you will see things like leadership getting more and more involved. They'll start doing things like participating in major activities. If you have like a family day, you have a town hall, they would talk about it. As you move upwards again to the star star portion, your leadership is well informed. They participate regularly. They are the face, right? And then on the Sun level, you see that they are really like the ambassadors. They are there to promote participation, to get everyone moving. So this is what leadership means in progression. As we move down into the second row, you see things like governance, right? So governance, and I guess a lot of times as HR practitioners, we realize that it always often starts with HR, but we know that it cannot just be driven by HR alone, right? So when it comes to governance, again, from a progression level, we see people moving from a one-man show. Perhaps it could be someone who's really enthusiastic about well-being, starting this initiative in your workplace, moving to having a committee, having a trained committee, and then lastly, having a recognized committee. And what do I mean by recognized committee? If you have been to certain companies, right, or even in your past roles or in the current role, you would see people who, and that, hey, this guy is the guy that you want to talk about when it comes to anything employee well-being. So that's what I mean by having a recognized committee. Now let's move on to the third part in terms of programs. So I think we all run different programs in our workplaces. So as an Earth company, you run things based on latest trends. So what is the latest trend right now? Having Ihrp programs, having certain things, right? Having a keto diet, for example. So these are like fun things and fads that we would run programs on, but that's not enough. As you move up the ladder, you start to understand what are your employees' interests, what are some of the things that your employees need. So it's not just about giving employees what they like, but giving them what they need. I mentioned, so if you can see under the star portion, right, you see holistic. We all understand that well-being is very holistic. You have different dimensions of well-being. You have your physical well-being, emotional well-being, social well-being, financial well-being, etc., etc. Every company has different definitions. Of course, we wouldn't go into it. But the point here is that it needs to be holistic, and ultimately it needs to be outcome-based. You need to know what exactly do you want to achieve out of providing all of this. And especially, I think in the session later where Bjorn will take you through, when you want to pitch to your management, right, you want to tell them, I want to do a well-being program. And they'll ask you for what? You need to be able to give them some kind of data and say that, this is what we want to achieve. We want to decrease, medical premium rates. We want to decrease medical claims rate. We want to decrease MC rates, for example. So these are things that you need to start thinking about. And then lastly, on the data portion, As an Ihrp company, you start to collect participation data. You know, how many people attend a webinar, how many people attend your event. As you move up the ladder, you start to collect more things like engagement survey, asking your employees what they need, and then finally doing an extensive needs assessment, you know, really going deep down in terms of doing health risk assessments, doing health screenings, collecting all of the data. So my experience, you know, over the last 10 years is that, so just take health screening, for example, right? A lot of companies, they have health screening benefits. And then when I ask these HRs, so what do you do with these results? You know, do you actually get health screening reports from your company? Do you actually use this result to give you informed decision making? But all of these data are very valuable data. Of course, you know, because of privacy issues, we can't go deeply into, you know, what each employee is facing. But from an aggregated level, all this information are very valuable, and it forms the base for us as practitioners to be able to pitch to our boss and say, oh, I've done this for 2 years. This is the kind of results that I have. All right. So this is, again, a very macro view of what an organization goes through. There are 4 different stages. And in the next section, what I want to do is that I want you to have this hands-on exercise, right? So there are 2 things that I would like you to do. The first is to think about, for every role, think about where you are currently. So for example, right, I would say that I am currently in the Ihrp section, right? So can I stamp this? Wait. Right, so if you are, okay, if you go to your screen right now, if you go to annotate, I'm not sure if you can click on annotate, you see stem. There are different kinds of stems, right? So you have your tick, and then you have your arrows. Shriram, do you want to try and tick something?
I've just done that. Can you see that, Caleb? Oh, I did that on Moon right now. It seems to be disappearing.
Oh, can you try that again?
Yeah.
Is there something that I need to enable? Okay. I see Shriram's arrow. Okay. So everyone, you know, go to the top of the screen, click on annotate, and then you'll see a whole range of menu buttons. Right. When you annotate, there is this thing called a stem. So under the stem, you'll see 2 in many different shapes. What I would like you to do is to put 1 tick to represent where you are for each role. So in terms of leadership, where do you think you are? Are you in the Ihrp category? Are you in the Moon category or Star category, etc.? And then the other part is to put an arrow to represent where you want to go. Does that make sense? I'm going to try and do it myself as well. Okay. Oh, it seems like it's disappearing though. I'm not sure why. Otherwise, this would have been a very nice diagram.
Yeah, it seems to be just disappearing, right?
Yeah, I see people putting things, but I'm not sure where it's going.
Okay, Adeline, if you go to view options in the top of your screen, the view options, if you drop down the box, you could see annotate as a function. View options, drop down, annotate. And then when you click annotate, you can see a range of options. You can use arrow, press arrow, and then
oh, it disappears once someone takes the next action. We didn't try this, Shriram. But that's fine. So I guess the purpose of this exercise, and I believe Shriram will also send across this set of slides to you, right, is that if you know where you are, and if you know where you want to go, then we can discuss in terms of what are the actions that you need to take. So for example, right, if you talk about leadership, if you want to move from a Moon to a Star, you know that you need to get more active leadership participation. If you talk about programs, for example, right, if you want to move from Ihrp to Moon, you know, what are the kind of actions that you need to take? So it's a pity that we can't have everyone stem on this. If not, I intended to use this as a very nice slide to explain. But essentially, what you really need to do is to know, what actions you need to take in order to move to the next stage. All right. So I'll leave this slide. I'll leave this diagram for you. You can bring it home and try to do it on your own as well. I'm going to move on and talk a little bit about what are other employers doing. So this is a study by Aon. I used to be in Aon for a couple of years before I moved to MOHD. And this is a study that they did with Singaporean employers, about 100 of them. And we asked them, what are you doing for emotional mental health? Of course, then you see all the results. You don't have to read all of them, right? But what I want you to understand is that there are many different kind of things you can do when it comes to emotional well-being. So it's not just about programs, but it's also about setting policies. It's also about changing the environment. So right at the top, you see things like having access to a breastfeeding room. Normally, you wouldn't associate this with mental health, right? But it does actually improve the mental health of new mothers, right? So at home, I have 2 young kids. So my wife, obviously, she gave birth to 2 beautiful kids for me, and as a young mother, she was often very stressed out whenever she had to go to office, because her office doesn't have a breastfeeding room. She had to end up pumping her milk in the meeting room or pumping in the toilet sometimes, and that increases stress and anxiety. So little things like this, when it comes to environmental changes, can actually improve someone's mental health. So I want to focus a few things here. So you can see the red boxes, right? The red boxes that I've highlighted are the top few things that employers are doing. So you see things like virtual learning sessions, webinars, lunch and learns, leadership, managerial training, EAP. And one of the things that we found, in this research is that in Singapore is one of the more advanced economies. In Singapore, 90% of employers have done something in this list or done something for emotional well-being, but only 55% of them have any sort of strategy. And by strategy, I mean linking some of these things together. So you see things like having a virtual learning session. So you need to ask yourself then, what exactly is my employee going to take away from this learning session? Things like having managerial training, which is really good. I really feel that for managerial training, right, that's one of the key things that you can do as an employer to improve the culture of your organization. Research has also shown that middle managers especially are the ones who have faced the biggest stress, especially during this whole pandemic situation, because they not only have to manage up, they also have to manage down. Right, so this is one of the key, and as a people manager, I can understand that. And I think when it comes to changing culture, we often talk about, not just about programs, right? Whatever that you see here, this is just a guide for you, but really understanding how you can change the culture. And I want to highlight one thing, that communications, as you can see on the top, the 4th one, communications is really important. Most employers, they have a ton of programs, right? So I guess in my course of work, I've seen employers having, maybe 5, 6, 7 talks, 10 talks a month, but I don't know for what, right? So they have different kind of topics, which is really good. I'm not saying that it's bad, but how do you then communicate this to your employees? And also in the same paper, right, we also found that there is a disconnect between what employers think and what employees think. Many employers think that, I'm doing a lot for my employees, but many employees think that actually I don't really know what the employer is doing. So communication is actually the key glue to put all of these together. You need to have an umbrella branding. You need to tell people, okay, as a company, this is what we're doing. Right? How do all of these initiatives make sense to you as an individual? How are we supporting you? Right? So this is, I guess, the key sort of purpose of this slide. I want to end by telling you that communication is super important. And this is something that traditionally in health programs, right? Because usually HRs are the one who are driving this. So we often say that, let our vendor do the communications. And you can have many different vendors. You can have 5 different vendors doing 5 different things. But every vendor will come up with their own communication, which doesn't sync with your overall messaging. So traditionally, communications department are never involved in these kind of like HR initiatives. They usually say that HR do your own thing, comms we do our own thing. But I guess what I would like to advocate here is that after today's session, and if you are thinking about doing something in your workplace, start talking to your communications department. They are the ones who are the people who will help you bring everything together, help you make sense, and help your employees make sense and understand all these efforts that you are putting in to make sure that everybody is healthy. All right. I also saw a question just now on the chat talking about EAP, and I would like to maybe also share a bit about EAP. So you can see here, Ihrp obviously is one of the key things that employers provide. And this number has accelerated over the last 2 years. And more and more employers are giving Ihrp, which is good. And then there's a question about having on-site versus off-site Ihrp. So just to share a bit about what Ihrp is. So Ihrp, right? When it comes to on-site and on-site, of course there are different considerations. When you have an off-site and external Ihrp, the chances are you tend to get more people to join because this person is not in your office, right? You get to be able to. Okay, let me rephrase, right? So if you have an external Ihrp, the Ihrp provider is likely to be able to get more utilization. If you have an internal Ihrp, it's likely you'll get lesser utilization. And the reason behind this is very simple. It's because of stigma. I think as an Asian society, we are all very wary about meeting someone. If you have this dedicated room in your office, right, and say this is like the Ihrp or counselor's room, nobody will walk in. Very, very few people will walk in. And that's the difference between an on-site and an off-site Ihrp. However, the benefit of having an on-site Ihrp is that you get this person's time, right? So you get this person sitting there, but then again, it's not conclusive whether this person's time is being utilized well, because you have this person dedicated for you sitting at a certain office, certain part of your office, but it may be in such a sense that this person is not utilized. But of course, you can get this person to do other things for you. So that's the difference. I think that was one of the questions that I saw about Ihrp. So I mean, we can have a further discussion about this towards the end of today's session, but that's my initial thoughts about this question. So now I want to do a very quick poll. Oops, did I stop sharing? I think I did stop sharing. Give me a second.
Yeah, you stop sharing.
Okay, so I want to do a very quick poll now. And I want to ask you about your top 3 barriers to addressing emotional well-being challenges. So please go to menti.com, key in this code 20898450. All right, and then if you just pick your top 3 barriers that you are personally facing when it comes to implementing emotional well-being issues in your workplace. I'm going to switch quickly to the Mentimeter. You will get the same code here as well. Okay. So I see some people are starting to give in their responses. So we see lack of leadership buy-in is the top barrier. Other priorities that need to be addressed. If I can invite someone who chose this option, can you write in the chat what are the other priorities that need to be addressed? Just write in the chat, and of course this can be a discussion afterwards as well. Okay, it seems like many people have voted. So let's take a look at the results now. So the first thing is other priorities that need to be addressed. That's good. Not enough data to justify a need to act. Okay. Unable to measure results. And I think second and third are very closely related. But of course, if you don't have, if you cannot measure results, then you will not have enough data to justify. We see some people also facing the lack of expertise to understand the issue. And this is where you can hire consultants. You can talk to your insurance brokers, talk to people like Bjorn from Mindfi. They will be more than happy to give you the right expertise to understand what the issue is and what are the next steps that you can do. And of course, lack of leadership buy-in. I think over the past few years, right, if I can talk a bit about lack of leadership buy-in, I think different leaders have also different motivation. If you're talking about a CEO, talking to the CEO, you need to understand what the CEO thinks. If you're talking about a CFO, you need to give certain financial returns, which I think Bjorn will also talk about later. How do you generate the ROI for CFOs? If you're talking to CHROs are usually already buy-in already, so don't need to convince them. But different C-suite level offices have different needs. So very, very important. So you need to understand which C-suite CXO you're talking to. Okay. So I'll pause this here and we'll move on to the next part. I'll share with you the results, okay, of what we have in our survey. So it's very similar. So we see that a lot of people are talking about not having enough data, not being able to measure results, etc., etc. So one of the things that I think, because this is a webinar about talking about really using tech. So technology, mental health technology will enable you to collect all the data that you need. Because I think, thinking about 5-10 years ago, where you have to manually go and fill in the participation form, manually ask people about how are they feeling, doing health risk assessments on a form, for example. Nowadays we don't use all of that. Using technology will help you collect all of these data at very quick speed. All right. So with all this data, then you can start to talk to your management about what has happened now, what are we trying to achieve, etc., etc. So again, I'll leave this for you to read on your own. What I want to share today very quickly is about Mindline.sg. So the government has many initiatives, right? So you can see here Mindline.sg, which is from MOHD. At the site, you also see things like Ihrp Health, which is from WSH. You see things like Workplace Outreach Wellness Package, which is from HPB. So I believe most of you would have known about some of these. If I can also invite you to take your phone right now and scan the QR code on top. So this is where you can try out Mindline at work. This is a solution that we have developed for all working adults. Essentially, we're not here to compete with the likes of Mindfi or any other providers. What we are here to do as a government, from a government perspective, is to make sure that every working adult in Singapore has a basic level of support, basic level of tools, etc., etc. Right. So please scan the QR code, and I'll take you through some of the key functions that we have within Mindline. All right. Essentially, the Mindline experience consists of 5 parts. Firstly, it's totally anonymous. So, and this is something that I guess all of us know as human beings. When we use any mental health platform, we want it to be anonymous. We don't want people to know about our struggles, right? So it's completely anonymous. It's completely personal to you. We do some level of personalization. So we ask you things like, what's your age group? We ask what's your life stage? What are you feeling right now? In order to customize the platform to your needs. On the platform itself, there are more than different kind of articles, different kind of videos, self-care exercises that you can do, all right? And for your employees to do as well. We ask you about your mood. It's always important to know how you're feeling. It's a good reminder. And lastly, we have this thing called a pocket AI therapist. Essentially, it's a chatbot lah. Right? I don't want to oversell this, but the chatbot is actually one of the better ones out there. If you think about chatbot, and most people will not think about using a chatbot to look after mental health. But what we do realize is, I think as what Marion mentioned, social network is very important. But what happens at 4 a.m. in the morning when you don't have someone to talk to? So you can talk to the chatbot lah. So this is designed to be the 24/7 friend. Any point in time you don't have someone to talk to, you can talk to the chatbot. The chatbot will answer you relatively smartly. First, if you talk gibberish to the chatbot, then the chatbot cannot answer you lah. But if you talk to the chatbot normally, they will be able to answer you, offer you advice, give you certain recommendations on what kind of exercises that you should do. So essentially, this is the Mindline experience. What is it in for your employees, right? So this is, again, we don't charge for this. This is free, sponsored by the government. If you go to Wiser yourself, you have to pay for all these premium resources. But what the government has to do is that we want to make sure everybody has that basic level of support, right? So we have made this available for all Singaporeans. If you want to implement this in your company, just feel free to reach out to me. Then we can sort of do something for you lah, and help you be able to track some of this utilization. That's one. For your employees, what happens, right? Your employees will get things like learning bites, things like articles that you can read. There are also things like comic strips. So we do realize that, it's not just about reading articles. Reading articles is very boring. As human beings, and especially busy professionals, we like to read very comics. I think comics are very in trend nowadays. There are things that try to give you a laugh, and of course that improves your mental well-being. You have a mood check-in, basically understanding how your mood is. And then lastly, I talked about the non-judgmental AI chatbot, which is something that is very helpful for people who are who really need someone to talk to in the middle of the night. Okay, so just a very quick plug about what this is, and this is actually my job. So I look at promoting this to organizations. Lastly, I just want to end off by saying, right, amongst all of these many different things that I just talked about, I talked about different kind of resources, different kind of programs that you can do. The idea here is to dream big. All right, think of what's the end goal for yourself, but start small. Sometimes I guess over the last few years, a lot of companies, a lot of HR professionals say that, oh, I may not be able to start off with a big bang. Should I still start? Right? Yes, you should still start. Start small. And the reason why I say start small is because when you start small, you get very quick successive quick wins. And this in turn gives you the data, the confidence to run bigger and bigger programs within your organization. So whatever you do, start doing your activities now. And if you're already doing something good, if you are thinking of, if you want to improve your program, that's even better. Of course, then there are many different kind of resources that you can reach out to. So I guess Sriram is here also to support all of our HR community in Singapore. So if there's anything that you need, feel free to reach out to him. Ihrp, feel free to reach out to us as well. So with that, I end my sort of presentation, and back to Sriram.
Thank you very much, Caleb. Really a lot of takeaways, especially when you compare the external EAP and internal EAP, and saying that the social stigma that exists in the Asian societies lead to lesser utilization of internal EAPs. And I've actually seen some of those counselors, in-house counselors, which was the question that was asked. They rarely, are leveraged by the employees, right? I mean, maybe that's a great answer to that, right? And when I looked at the list of some of the simple things that all of us can embark on, like HR teams, right? A manager virtual training, and for a new manager, can effectively make a huge difference to the mental health of the organization. I think that we can start doing, right? A lot of communications to break the stigma. Working with your CorpCom team to get that done, I don't think costs a lot of money. Bringing awareness to this. And I'm going to just quickly share, in addition to what Caleb has shared. Now, already, if you remember at the start of the session, we did share Ihrp Connect repository, which has been put together by WSH, Ihrp, and NHG. Now, these are four QR codes that you can leverage. The first one is something Caleb had actually shared. The second is the playbook on workplace mental well-being that has been put together by Ihrp, leveraging the 5,000 plus odd practitioners with their inputs. Third is the iWork Health survey, which is available for free again from the government, and then the total WSH program. So please feel free to, having looked at some of the exercises that various governments across the regions have done. Singapore government has really done a lot when it comes to this, right? Unfortunately, HR teams don't seem to be leveraging it as much, right? I think it's time we do it. Perfect segue. Over to Bjorn.
Thank you so much, Sriram, Caleb, and Marion as well. Hi, everyone. How is everyone doing? It's been 2 hours or 3 hours that you all sat here. So my name is Bjorn Lee, and as you listen to me, feel free to stand up as well. Standing is one of the most important things that we don't do enough of, but we should as well. I see that Marion, you stood up already. Awesome, awesome. So quick introduction to everyone. My name is Bjorn Lee, and I'm the CEO and founder of Mindfi. Mindfi is a Singapore-headquartered, Singapore-based mental health startup. We started about 4 years ago, and a quick story and also introduction about myself is that I started the company because I spent about 17 years in the technology industry so far, right? And 10 years ago, I had a major health scare. I was living in the US back then, but my team was in Singapore. So being a 30-year-old back then, 10 years ago, now everybody knows my age, right? I was just working crazy hours, 16 to 18 hours per day, so that I can balance both Singapore and US as well, right? Incidentally, they're also 16 hours apart, right? Because of California and Singapore as well. So I started experiencing chest pains. They would just be 1 or 2 seconds long. I just think that, okay, I'll just shake it off. But it kept happening. So I saw two doctors, right? I saw 2 types of doctors, one in the US, and I saw 2 doctors, one in the US and one in Singapore, right? And both prescribed me quite different things, right? Well, they prescribed me the same thing. They told me that, after intense health check, my physical health is fine. My heart is fine. I was not having a heart attack at 30 years old. Then that was a relief. I heard that and I was like, okay, good. I just need to know I don't have a heart attack and I can get back to work. right? Business as usual. But they said that your mental health is obviously very poor. What do you do? Right? What do you do? Right? So the long story short, the American doctor was very quick to assume, because I'm in California as well, I work in the tech industry, he suggested that I should go see a psychiatrist, take some drugs to actually manage it as well, maybe see a clinical psychologist as well. I came back to Singapore. Well, the Singapore doctor pretty much said the same thing as well, but you know, because I heard it for the second time already, right? He can see the look of stigma and skepticism on my face. And I think if you're in my shoes as well, you probably will do the same thing, right? So he actually prescribed me to do something that's free. Meditation, mindfulness, to regulate it as well. He suggested I also take a break, and then he actually took a bit of time, like 5 minutes, to share about how he manages his own stress as a doctor. So that was 10 years ago. So 4 years ago, I decided that I wanted to start a company into this space and bring whatever I know about technology in Silicon Valley and China, right? And Singapore as well, to build something specially for Singapore and Asian companies as well. So that brings me to today. And so I'm very happy to share with you all. Before I launch into my slides, I will just be a parrot like Marion and Caleb as well, and encourage everyone to just share your video, share your screens, because yes, thank you, Marion. It really inspires and encourages us as speakers as well. See, Marion even brought her teddy bears. Thank you so much for the support, right? It really encourages and inspires us in that as well. I don't know whether Sriram planned this, but maybe there's good news for some of you as well. I was encouraged to add templates, right? So Marion didn't have much templates. You know, like, because psychology is a very big field to do this, there's no templates, honestly, everybody is different, right? We saw that Caleb had some templates. My gift for some of you is that I have some templates that we use internally and always has stayed in my head as well. Today is the first day that we have actually I have cleaned the slide up so that I can share some with you. It is an internal roadmap and mapping exercise we do for our clients without them knowing, right? Sometimes we ask them certain questions as well, right? As you embark, right, on your individual program design for mental health and well-being, I hope that if there's anything that you take away at the end of this masterclass, you have a framework to think of where to plan. It's just one slide, right? Maybe 7 sub boxes, but it puts everything to you super easy as well. With that being said, feel free to drop questions inside, and Sriram, feel free to interrupt me if you feel that there's an important question that I may have missed. Thank you so much. All right, let's dive in. As I share my screen as well. Okay. Can everybody see my screen? Perfect. Okay. All right, so we'll begin with a short breathing exercise. I know that all of you have done a lot of breathing exercises, right? So I want to explain the 2 different components of a simple breath. When you inhale, you're activating what Marion called our ancient brain, right? Our fight or flight system. We think that there's a tiger, a dinosaur, a T-Rex chasing us, right? It activates our fight or flight system. A colloquial way of call it, right, is that whenever you inhale deeply, you're activating your department of stress and exercise. In the past, this was to give us enough energy to charge, to fight, and so on, right? But it's in exhaling that you activate a different part of your system, right? So that activates your relaxation system. It helps you rest and digest better. In fact, certain psychologists have also recommended that you try to extend your exhaling part slightly more than the inhaling part, right? So that you can really maximize the resting factor from each breath. So with that being said, I will now guide you on a very simple exercise, which is the finger breathing exercise. I will momentarily stop my sharing so that you all can see me, right? This is why I think it's great as well. You know, like maybe you don't want to share video, but you know, like, it'd be good if we do this together so that everybody can see each other as you experience this, right? So with your left hand, this is my left hand, put your right index finger at the bottom of your left hand. We'll be tracing our hand with our finger. Whenever you go up, you inhale. Whenever you go down, you exhale. Okay, go up, inhale, go down, exhale. Do not do this, okay? You hyperventilate, you know, like none of us take responsibility. All right, so ready? Let's go, all right? Breathing in, going up. And breathing out, going down. Rounding the curve of my palm, going up. Slowly rounding the tip of my index finger, going down now. Breathe out through your nose or your mouth, it's up to you. I'm going to breathe out through my mouth. Breathing in, going up. Going down, breathing out. Now for our ring finger, going up. And down, exhaling, relax, and relieve any kind of stress you may have. Now this is a short one, your little finger, breathing in, up. Now try to slowly release the breath from your nose and lungs, breathing out slowly. Expelling as much air as you can, really activating your rest. Okay, that's it, right? Whenever you feel that, you know, like life gets too hectic, too stressful, somebody can complain because, you know, these days as a HR officer, you are not just a human resource officer, right? Like Caleb knows this old joke I said yesterday. You're also a health, you know, like a resources manager now. You're like a health manager, right? A lot of people tell you, can I go back to the office? I have this problem. Can I wear 3 masks, 4 masks, and so on. So whenever you feel overwhelmed, try this exercise. You don't have to just do it this way, one thing, and go back, try multiple ways as well. Super simple, all right? Cool. Okay, so let's go back to my slides. Okay, we are going to go through 4 different parts today, right? This is going to be a very instructional workshop, right? The who, the why, the what, and the how, right? Of leveraging tech to build your mental wellness program. Number 1, who are the stakeholders? A lot of people mentioned this in the previous sharing already, right? The stakeholders is your workforce. There's a lot of them. It's very misunderstood. We have heard all these kind of complaints and feedback and compliments as well from our clients when we actually go out into the public, when we ask people as well. I've also gone on Twitter to look for some of them, but I don't want to expose the identities as well. Mental wellness is very misunderstood today, right? In Singapore, across Asia. A lot of people like to say, I'm too busy to join a wellness program. Everything on the left side is what employees might say, right? Right side, the purple ones are what HR, or we hear employers might say as well. Left side, I do not want my boss and colleagues to know.
I'm fine. Sorry. Can everyone still hear?
Yes, yeah.
I'm my AirPods just run out of battery. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect, perfect. Okay. I do not want my boss and colleagues to know. I'm fine. I don't need mental health. These could be people who are really very peaceful and unstressed out, right? Or they could be in denial as well. We don't know, right? On the right side, there's people who believe that the silver bullet happened yesterday, right? In Singapore. Or we don't see enough interest, and hence we're not going to do it because people don't seem interested, right? We are unsure of the ROI of the programs as well. So it's very misunderstood in a lot of reasons. Stigma is prevalent in Singapore, right? But it can be overcome with technology as well. I'm going to follow the tripartite framework, right? That Ihrp co-created with MOM, NTUC, and so on and so forth as well, right? There are 3 key care models where we talk about mental health and wellness. For individuals on the left side, for groups, for teams, all right, in the center, and then on the right side as an employer for the whole organization, mostly for HR, right? This is how technology can help. As Caleb mentioned earlier, any technology solution gives you 24/7 access. At 4 a.m., you can't sleep. You wake up, you're worried about a 9 a.m. meeting, right? You cannot meet the numbers, right? You can actually get some access to quick help, right? Perhaps it's a short journaling exercise. I love journaling as well. It's really helped me a lot because they're based on therapy programs like CBT and so on, right? Or perhaps, you could chat with someone, right? Perhaps in the example of my line, you can chat with a chatbot, even though it's a machine, right? Perhaps sometimes, there are certain services as well you may experience. You can chat with a human as well, right? Mindfi is actually going to release that in next quarter, right? So there's 24/7 access. There's a lot of resources you can find yourself. Second, people don't wish their bosses and colleagues to know. Anonymity is a key thing in technology, right? Third as well is that we keep talking about mental health, right? But mental health, as Marion mentioned earlier, right? Seriously, in a company, less than 5% of people have issues that requires the intervention of a clinical professional, right? We need to talk about mental wellness because it's for everyone. It's about being inclusive for 100%. Going back, the person who says, I'm fine and do not need mental health is probably the person who doesn't seek help, right? Because the more serious your own issue is, the more you may not want to tell people as well. Last but not least, also AI, right, is becoming a big trend as well. So with a bit of a crystal ball gazing, right, in technology sector, we see that more mental health apps, mental wellness apps will actually start using AI to personalize it because everybody needs a different solution. In teams, you need a community support system, right? That's one of the key suggestions from the tripartite advisory as well, right? You need a safer work environment, and this ties in a lot with anonymity. When you can actually feel safe sharing with your colleagues with a bit of distance, right? So that they don't know who you are, but you can still share as well. You actually can talk about issues as well, right? So this is actually a very important part of creating a social support system in the workplace. Technology also allows you to scale very well, unlike lunchtime talks or maybe just a phone line as well, right? You may have teams in Singapore, you may have teams in Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, India as well. And you cannot be everywhere. But with technology, you can then scale and distribute that. It's always available on the App Store, your web browser, your Play Store, and so on. For organizations, you want to understand your employee health data. You want to link it to performance as well, because later on we will see productivity can be measured and it can be linked to mental health and wellness. For some of you who may already be further along in your technology transformation journey, you can also integrate this with your HR information systems, right? Whether you use Workday, Fresh Teams, Sprout, and so on, there is something that you can actually connect, and you should look for that as well, right? So this, you can think of this as checking the box, right? Whenever you look for an entire solution as well. I built this in a way, this chart over here, feel free to take a screenshot, picture with your phone if you like, right? You can use this to actually mark out a criteria. But I have also other sheets for you later on that you can see. I talked about inclusivity, right? And so the way that we need to see inclusivity at the HR layer, right, or as a leader in any organization, is that mental health and wellness is split into three parts. At the base layer, that is those people who are very much in need. They are red, right? And that's usually the focus of Ihrp solutions traditionally. But utilization rates in the US range from 1% to 2%, right? In Singapore, in Asia, it could be much less as well. Because of the pandemic, there is the false positive of potentially seeing this surge to maybe 5%, 10% in some companies. But we don't know how this will evolve as time passes as well, because in the advanced US market, this is actually still around 1%. This is why mental health and wellness solutions need to move into more safe territory to talk about well-being, right? So that people at risk feel that they can seek help without needing to speak to a psychologist or psychiatrist as well. And there are some people who are totally fine. They are fine today. They may not be fine tomorrow, but the earlier they learn how to cope with increased stress levels, difficult moods, and so on, the better as well. This is why the apex of the pyramid is the go-getters, the alpha personalities in your workplace. The people who say they are fine, they are well, but they probably are drinking a lot, or they have other means to actually relieve their stress as well, but probably unhealthy. the mental performance part, the apex, right, is key. Your alpha figures, your leader, your CEO, right, the people who are ambitious, they need mental health as well, but you don't want to call it that because you turn them away. You want to call this a performance solution. I'm going to show a framework before we have one of 3 hands-on practices today, right? And I want to introduce this framework from the WHO World Health Organization, right? The World Health Organization has spent the past 20 years, right, trying to develop a very short 5-question type of assessment for everybody to know whether their well-being is good or bad as well. These 5 questions was cut down from 28 questions because 20 years ago, people had no time. Today, I think people have even less time, right? So there are 5 different aspects, physical, mental, emotional, and so on. So I'd like to encourage all of you, right, to take out your phones and join me in another Mentimeter quiz as well. Feel free to scan this QR code or take out your browser, go to www.menti.com. I'm going to switch screens so that we can all see and do the quiz together. All right. So for a few more seconds for those who want to scan the code. Otherwise, you'll be able to see it over here. All right. Okay, so we have the first question already, right? This is a quiz about emotional well-being, All right. So it's a very quick quiz that you can do right now, and you can see everyone's questions as well. Everything is anonymous. We don't ask for your name or email or whatsoever. You can also choose to do this for your teams, right? It's super easy to set up, and you get a quick read of the room as well. So these 5 questions are developed by the WHO, so that it's super easy to do, and you can actually see some of how we use that as well. It can also be used to screen for depression, right? When you have a very low score. Okay. Moving on. The second question is about mental well-being, right? Mental well-being. How calm and relaxed have you felt over the past 2 weeks, right? Over the past 2 weeks. So this is the second of the 5 questions that the WHO 5 actually uses, right? So you can see that in our, we have quite an even distribution today, right? So I think, well, we are less than half the time. Yeah. I guess this is a very busy period for HR professionals, right, Sriram? You know, like everybody's moving back to work. And we have these 50 people who have managed to join us, you know, today for half a day, right? So there are some ways they can stay calm and relax, hopefully. Next, we will go to the next question. It's about physical well-being. How active and vigorous have you felt? Right, for those of you who actually, you know, check out HPB's mental health, you know, like programs and initiatives as well, you can see that HPB really encourages everyone to run and swim more, right? Or do more yoga as well, right? And this is also a reminder for myself to maybe just sit up a little bit, right? And if you haven't, feel free to stand up as well, right? So that you don't just sit down for the past 2+ hours, right? Physical well-being is very interrelated with mental health as well. It's part of the equation. Next. This is an interesting question. This is about a sense of alignment and purpose, right? Of what you do, which is probably your work, with your life, right? The WHO calls this spiritual well-being. Is your spirit filled? Are you doing things that interest you? They are exciting, they are aligned as well, right? For our clients that we see over the past 2 years, right, especially those in the healthcare industry, they do best in this. They do best in this question, right? I don't know which industry your company is in as well, right? But your knowledge will differ, right? Some of them may feel that, you know, like they don't feel a sense of purpose and alignment. Some do, some don't as well, right? So this is a very interesting question because we see a big swing across all our clients, right? From everything from the finance industry to the healthcare industry, they are at opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to this. Next, this is about sleep. This is the 5th question, right, of the WHO 5, right? It's about how fresh and rested you feel. I don't know whether you noticed just now, I'm wearing this ring, right? It's actually my wedding ring as well, but you know, I got the wrong size and this thing could slip out if I wear it on my 4th ring finger. But this is an Aura ring and it tracks my sleep quantitatively. But I can sleep a lot and will still wake up feeling tired as well, which is why this question is interesting because it provides another point, right? Singaporeans are known to sleep the least in Asia, one of the least. So this is something that we all have to look at, right? There's a ladder over here. It's an alarming ladder. Right? Okay. It's getting slightly better as well. There's a 6th question, which is very important as we come out of the pandemic, as we go back to the workforce. It's about social well-being. How connected have you felt to others? I think this is really important because social isolation is a key theme, right, of the upcoming May, which is World Mental Health Awareness Month, right? People may be speaking to their teams every day on Zoom, MS Teams, WebEx, but they don't feel connected to them, right? So that's why it's very important for HR to look at ways and means to kind of like create programs that can help with the social aspect. And with that, I conclude these questions, right? This is the WHO 5, right? So it is easily available online. Whether you have something similar in your employee engagement survey or not, if you don't, you can feel free to actually add this in because it's super quick. 5 to 6 questions, you get a very quick read as well. A very low score indicates that people are depressed. And you can see that from an example of the analytics we show, right? For those with very low score, they are red. Those with mid-range scores, they are orange, which means that based on WHO 5, they are at risk of depression. And then there are those who are fine. These are the numbers that we have actually seen from Singapore-based users over the past 2 years, right? And what we can do also is that we can help them improve their score over time with technology. So next is a very interesting part, right, that Caleb actually kind of alluded to earlier. When we think about building a business case, you have to talk to the top, your boss. Whether you have to talk to a director, a VP, CHRO, or your CEO as well, right? There are different techniques, different business cases you have to build depending on your organizational culture, on the type of your boss, all right? So I'm going to explain this a little bit quickly as well, but this is a most popular organization culture assessment out there. It's actually quite fun to do this with your other colleagues in case they were not able to join this, or share with your other HR friends in other companies as well, right? Because if you belong in a company that is very flexible and free to act, right? You have freedom to act and take on new initiatives. You belong in this clan culture or the ad hocracy culture, right? And if you belong in a company that's very flexible and they are very focused not on internal matters, internal politics, but very focused on the market, new trends, and so on, you are an adhocracy. If you are more focused internally, right, perhaps it's more of a family business, that's why they call it a clan, right, where the boss is more like a father figure, right? And then on the bottom side, if your company relies a lot more on processes, rules, policies, and people are punished, they can even be punished as well. They do something wrong as well. You belong more in the stability and control side. And again, depending on whether internally focused or externally focused, you maybe have a hierarchy or a market culture, right? I would like everyone to try a second Mentimeter as well, right? With this, where I can explain this a bit more and actually get a quick read of the type of cultures we have among all the attendees over here. All right, so let's come in over again to the Mentimeter. All right, use this code as well. Do you belong more in an adhocracy culture, clan culture, hierarchy, or market, right? So if you are in an adhocracy culture, you have an innovator mindset. Your employees take risks. Your leaders are seen as innovators and risk takers. If you are in a clan culture, your leaders are seen as mentors or father figures. People may even bow slightly or have certain high level of respect for them as well. The organization is held by loyalty and tradition. Loyalty and tradition. If you have a hierarchy culture, procedures direct what people do. The leaders are very proud of efficiency-based coordination and organization. Formal rules and policies keep them together. If you have a market culture, right, people are very competitive. They're very focused on goals, KPIs, OKRs. Your leaders are very hard drivers, right? And producers, and they may even be rivals to one another as well. They can be very tough with high expectations. Each of these different organization type determines the business case that you should make as well. Because in a clan culture, you might be looking at just building a strong relationship and push whatever initiative you can with the leader if you have a good relationship. And in a market culture, for example, it could be very meritocratic. You need to show your numbers, you need to do your research, you need to put together a good PowerPoint presentation, perhaps similar as adhocracy culture, which shares similar traits to market culture as well, right? So that's a very fascinating, organization culture type, and something we need to actually think about, because when you write a business case to run any wellness program, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So I'll come back over here. So why are we doing this, right? I like to show you some of the key value propositions for you to build a business case, okay? You're writing a business case. I want to show you the top 5 ways that most American companies, right, because there's a longer history of them running mental health programs over there. What are the top business cases they have used? In Singapore, what are some of the top business cases that the tripartite advisory is indicating already, right? The management consultancies are advising as well. These are the 5. The ROI of mental health programs. The ROI is real, but commitment will come before results, right? According to a Deloitte study conducted in 2019, right? But this was actually done in Canada, but the numbers are probably similar as well because they've been replicated and perhaps even higher. $1 spent on mental health wellness program can lower health costs by at least $2.20 in Sing dollars. And this actually can go up to as high as $4 as well when you look at some other research as well. Because these slides will be shared, feel free to click on the links, look at the study, and perhaps new research will emerge as well from the tripartite advisory or any organization that comes out over there. Second, absenteeism, a top favorite HR metric, right, has been found to be reduced between $600 to $1,100 based on the Straits Times article, right, last year, if I'm not wrong, right? Last year, if I'm not wrong. Absenteeism is a big thing. It can be measured in terms of days of leave. Every extra day of leave taken, right, can be calculated on a pro rata basis based on the monthly salary as well, right? So this is the absenteeism cost that could be reduced by investing in the mental wellness program. Third is a HRD article, right, which talks about how employee productivity can increase by $3.2 billion per year in Singapore alone, right, based on investing more in mental wellness programs. The other 2 are red because there's a push and a pull factor regarding this as well. It's up to you on how you want to, which number suits most for the culture of a company. So now that you know your organizational culture, right, some of you may prefer to focus on the positive numbers of the negative, of the green numbers. You could say that if we invest in a mental wellness program, these are the gains that we could expect to see, right? Then you can also play the card of fear and loss minimization, right? That if you don't do it, we will see 50% increase. We could see as high as 50% increase in turnover based on this Harvard Business Review article, right? You could also measure your CSAT, your monthly pulse surveys as well to see how employee morale and scores are fluctuating before and after a program is implemented. In addition, if you work in the manufacturing industry, right, or you have workplaces that there's a lot of manual labor involved, right, compensation and disability costs can rise up to very high in terms of manifested in healthcare costs as well. So that's another number that we can take a look at. So that covers the why. I'm next moving on to another template. All right. And first, I want to just check in and see whether there's any questions I can answer as I reach the halfway mark. Sriram, is there any immediate questions that I should answer before I move on?
There's one question that has come up. The organization type survey will be an interesting exercise to conduct with leaders. Are there any speaker notes we can refer to run the survey? I mean, it's more of an operational aspect, Bjorn.
Sure, no problem. You know what? I will actually update the deck as well so that you will provide this, right? It's quite a long survey, which is why I did not show it for this session. But great question, Candice. Thank you for asking that. I will update my slides before I send to Sriram.
Okay, there's one more. Are there any community support platforms available today that we can consider for our employees where they can, for example, voice their concern anonymously or seek advice on issues impacting them?
Yes, I mean, well, you know, like we actually do have that in Mindfi because we don't see a lot of community support platforms out there. But I think, you know, like Caleb, would you like to answer this question as well? Are there any free ones that you are aware of?
Actually, my line is doing that. It'll be available towards the end of this year and next year. So it will be a community platform, anonymous. You can go in, create your own groups. People can just voice their concerns about mental health. So stay tuned for that.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, but we do have that in the current Mindfi app as well, Candice, if you are interested to check out on that. Okay, there's probably another new question, but I'll keep moving on because I think there's a lot of interest to see what this template is. For those of you who have kept in close contact with the tripartite advisory, right, you might be familiar with some of the talking points, but I have shrunk all of them into a slide over here with check boxes, right? Due to the interest of time, we may not have time for you to check this off, but I think you can feel free to bring this back, take a picture again if you like as well, right? So that you know what you are doing. I have helpfully divided this into the vertical columns of for self, for teams, and for HR, right? In the roles, right, horizontally, I've divided them into the three types of stakeholders, the three types of employees you experience in your workforce. People who do not show any kind of symptoms. If they do the quiz, right, they are fine, right? This represents perhaps about 60%, 50-60% of your workforce. Then there's probably about 30 to 40% of people who may be in the orange amber zone, right? And then maybe you can have about 5 to 10% of people who are in the red zone and they need help, right? From clinical professionals as well. So you can see that over here, right, it's a range, not just coming from the tripartite advisory. I've compiled this list as well. It's an internal list that we use, right? There is also collates, you know, like 5 other sources, right? Including from Berkeley, the University of California of Berkeley. There's a Michigan University guide for this as well. There are some other government guides as well on mental health. There's one for Japan as well that we have seen as well. So I'm collecting and consolidating this list right over here that you all can check out, right? So feel free to use this if you like, right? It's a helpful summary of everything that you can see. And this is part 2 of the templates, right? To help you in doing planning. This is the what. This is the other part as well, right? So as I promised, I hope to give you a business case template for you to go home and fill it out, right? And don't worry, you know, Sriram and Ihrp have kept reminding me as well that, you know, we need to have case studies. So I'll populate this quickly for you later for 2 case studies, a small firm and a big firm, right? This list is, I've been running 3 different companies over my 17-year career already as a business owner and tech startup founder, right? So this list, I did not pluck it out from my behind or from the sky, right? This is an adaptation of a business case template adapted for running a wellness program. You start by listing your problem, right? What are the top 3 challenges? Write it out with data where possible, so that it's quantitative rather than qualitative. Then ask yourself, what are your key goals? What are your metrics? How do you evaluate success, right? Is it absenteeism, reduction of healthcare costs, over what time horizon as well? That's very important because some of the clients we meet, they rush for results. They want to see, oh, you know, like my wellness improved in 3 months' time, and that's good. I think I can stop already. Right? It doesn't work that way. It takes years, right, for some of those ROI to become real, right? And it requires commitment from your company culture as well, which is why, if I may jump a little bit, culture fit is very important. If you put it on this list, then you can see it and then you can share with your team, your wellness committee as well to discuss, because everything is in one place, right? Using the assessment earlier that Candice asked for, I will share more details about that. You have 4 different cultures, 4 different types of leaders, and leaders translate down, right? How your leaders behave is how your employees behave as well. If your leader is very open to feedback and criticism, then you have a very dynamic culture. If your leader doesn't like criticism, what they say is gospel, then it becomes very hard, right? But still, you can run a wellness program as well, right? Current tech tools, if you list out your current HR tools, then you can look at whether your potential vendor integrates with them. For example, you use Workday. For example, you use Fresh Teams, Telenox. Does this tool that you are intending to adopt integrate with them so that you can measure ROI better? That's good as well to actually mark that on the list. If you run any kind of current programs, feel free again to write them down. How frequent do you run them? Are they tech-based? If you have internal champions, oh my goodness, right? You are very alone in starting any new program. But if you know that some of your colleagues are long-time meditators, they actually do a lot of yoga, they actually are trained as a coach as well. You want them to help you promote your new agenda as well, right? So that people do not feel that this is a HR top-down driven initiative. So write down the names, titles, or the criteria for staff that you have as internal champions, right? Big part of the tripartite advisory, but I would say going deeper as well, right? Try to make sure that you combine them with your business case, right? Because you need a team, and you form that team over here by writing them down so that you can begin to do a mind mapping exercise over here, do circles and so on and so forth. The way we do this internally in Mindfi, right, for our clients is that we mark this all down on a giant piece of paper, A3 or mahjong paper if you like, right? And then you start drawing, connecting the dots and so on, discussing what makes sense for them, right? And we encourage our clients to do the same thing as well. This then allows you to think about a proposed program over here, right? Now, this proposed program, maybe you have too many ideas. You should use the previous template that I provided, right? So then, it's too much to squeeze everything in. This is your proposed program. What are you interested in? You could do just what you're interested in, over here, what can you do, and put a timeline to it. Then, importantly as well, I think both Caleb and Marion mentioned this earlier, you need to talk to your internal communications team. If you're a big company, you have a corp comms. You have a small company, to work with your designer, your marketing team, because it's very important to get the word out. One of the common complaints for our clients is that they do not know their HR actually is running a program, right? So you need to be very effective in communications, right? Either by creating a cool name, having a launch day, getting your CEO or your country manager to actually speak as well, right? You need to keep it fresh. You need to get people involved. You need to get your champions involved. If you are a culture company or a hierarchy culture company, you definitely need your top-down leader, the top leadership to talk, right? But on the other side, if you are the other types of cultures, then you don't necessarily need them to talk as well. This is why knowing your boss, your culture type, actually plays a big role as well, right? Then you can start looking at your proposed budget, right? When we think about your budget as well, it spans everything from a fully paid, a co-pay model, to even a free program as well. Yes, even if you are running a free program, you don't want to just, plug and pull all the free programs available, go to YouTube, go to MyLine, go to this, go to that, right? You also want to put together a plan. Because once you see results, then you can actually get a budget and do some of the cooler stuff as well, right? So before I move into the case studies, I will just share a little bit of context, right, about how Mindfi works, because you have to understand the solution a little bit to know how the case studies work as well. So Mindfi is organized similarly to the tripartite advisory, right, of self-care, group care or team care, right, and also private care, which is EAP as well, right? So in the self-care, we actually personalize all our exercises and programs based on the WHO-5 data or wearable data as well. If they have a Fitbit, Apple Watch, and so on, we actually tailor it based on the data to show them personalized recommendations. We launched a new feature just 1 week ago, right, where everybody can post anonymously inside the forums, inside this, inside the app as well. And most importantly, these are not just your typical Reddit forum or your hardware zone forum where you can have a lot of trolls, right? We actually have experts to moderate each of these topics. So they can actually see this as a Q&A community where experts will answer this on a daily basis as well. EAP, you're familiar with that, right? So we have providers who can speak in all different languages in Singapore and overseas if you have an overseas staff as well, right? We cover 16 different APAC markets like Japan, India, Hong Kong, Indonesia, and so on and so forth. Last but not least, we also have HR analytics, right? That allows you to measure, right? And know whether your staff is improving or not improving, right? And if you'd like to try out the app, feel free to scan, right? And so that you can download the app over here. So our program is developed with our advisory council, right? So we have a combination of advisors in clinical psychology, psychiatry, both in US and Singapore as well. Some of you may be familiar with Professor Kwa, who is a distinguished professor from NUS School of Medicine, and also Erica Johnson, who was the co-founder of America's #2 mental health startup called Modern Health, right? So she brings a lot of experience as an Asian American running a top health startup over there to actually advise us. And here are some of the clients that we have actually been working with as well over the past 2 years, right? We work with very different industries in manufacturing, healthcare, finance, technology, and so on. So coming back to the template, right? This is an updated version of the template. This is a template with an added filter. Everything that's yellow indicates how technology can assist you, right? Indicates how technology can assist you, right? So when you look at your technology solution, right? So let's say, for example, what's very popular is educational talks and workshops. So we run a lot of talks and workshops as well, right? But one thing here is that your talks and workshops available for download, for streaming, for viewing after it's over. Because sometimes you only have maybe say 10%. You're lucky you get 40% people to attend a talk and workshop. But most people are probably not paying attention as well, right? So they want to be able to view them after that as well. But a talk and workshop alone must be connected to a wider set of resources, right? So if they are connected with EAP, if they are connected with, say, challenges or self-care options in an app, whether it's a web app or mobile app, that's very important. So no matter what provider you choose, right, you must actually ask for how they support any talks and workshops. Because providers may charge you an arm and a leg, right, for a talk and workshop. It could start from, say, like $2,000. I think that's Marion's rate, right? Yeah, we do have providers that charge that rate as well, right? Usually the rates, will be like $200-300 as well, especially if you run it in bulk as well, right? So to the thousands as well. The thing here is that you do not want to waste that workshop. You want to make sure that is connected to exercises, programs, so that they can see this as part of a fuller solution, right? You want them to be able to run different types of assessments, right? So for those people who are at risk, you want to allow for internal wellness champions to run community-based support inside your technology solution, right? You want to be able to monitor over-timers on the analytics as well. So if you connect your HRIS system to your mental health app, right, then you can then know who are the people at risk. We'll anonymize these people for you, but show you how they are improving or not improving over time if you have this type of data as well. Most importantly, right, in your mental health solution, you need to be understanding of the pyramid. Those people who are well, not so well, and unwell. You need to have escalation protocols. So whenever you actually evaluate any solution, you want to ask them how they handle it for those people well, not so well, and unwell. What happens if somebody who was previously well suddenly become unwell? Are you able to escalate, or are they stuck, right? Still seeing a non-clinical coach or counselor? Can they get access to a psychiatrist quickly if they need help as well, right? Escalation protocols, very important, right? So this is how the entire solution can become tech-enabled as well. Of course, a lot of them that are not highlighted, it indicates this is some extra policy work that HR needs to look at as well, that you need to craft out and communicate outside of a technology solution. So in the case studies, you will see that, using Mindfi as an example, right? We have self-care programs where we provide resources to 600 over video classes and audio exercises. Also, there's well-being tests, right? So whether it's Mindfi or something else, you want to make sure that the self-care tools that you are evaluating has sufficient science-based well-being tests, right? For us, we use the WHO5. We also use another system called the WOS5, right? We have 10 other types of assessments inside the app, and most mental health apps would have them as well, right? So for example, the Ihrp Health, right? What are some of the assessments that you are using? Do you want to run the full assessment or do you want to run a partial one? That's something that you should understand and evaluate before you roll it out. In terms of the group care, right? What you need to do is to actually make sure that employee well-being is a social experience. You may be running lunchtime talks. You may have your champions run this themselves so that you can cut costs, right? So for example, maybe your chief marketing officer is familiar with therapy. And so maybe they can share what to talk about with a therapist. Somebody else is a meditator. Maybe you can run that as well. You can also ask external experts to be a guest speaker or maybe pay them a fee for them to come in to supplement your internal talks. You also need to think about, how you can run group therapy sessions as well. This is something that is unique that we are bringing over at Mindfi. So rather than a therapist running it on a one-on-one basis, we can also run this at a one-to-many basis as well, right? So this is group therapy. Of course, you can also, look at creating an internal forum, right? Maybe trying out a Telegram group as well, or any tool that allows you to run a anonymous posting mode, right? In the Mindfi app, we actually have a forum or chat, right? We call it a circles feature where they are moderated by experts. This is EAP, right? And I want to talk about EAP as well, right? EAP in today's world, right? As Caleb mentioned, there's internal EAP and external EAP. The type of profile of the professionals have also changed. In the past, you usually only talk to clinical professionals, counselors, therapists with X amount of experience, X amount of years of experience as well. But coaches is becoming very popular, right? So you could work with a coach, for example, an executive coach, to help you become more productive. How can you help you in your career, right? To help you get promoted, to do more per day as well. You could even talk to a health coach as well, a weight loss coach, a nutritionist, a lifestyle coach, for example, helping you deal with issues. For example, one question I saw earlier from one of you is that how can you deal with anger issues, right, towards your kids or your partners as well, right? And I must say that sometimes I irritate my wife, and vice versa is true as well. Sometimes she talks too loud, and then she affects my work meetings as well, right? If we have kids in the house as well, how can you manage your own issue before you actually talk to them next after your work, right? So parenting is actually one of the topics that you can actually talk about with a coach as well. So it is not, you don't need to be depressed or anxious to actually talk to her, to actually use the EAP. So EAPs have actually evolved in providing you experts who can actually consult you in your lifestyle topics as well. All right, and one of the upcoming features that we have is a human-powered, not AI-powered chatbot, a human-powered chat channel that allows for anyone to speak to one of our staff. They will not be a counselor, but they will be able to actually share and guide you to certain resources, especially if you actually wake up in the middle of the night at 4 a.m. and need some urgent help as well. So next, I will actually start covering the case studies because I think that's what you are very interested in as well, right? So having understood an example from the Mindfi solution, here's how some of our clients have done it. We will have go through 2 case studies. The first case study is a technology startup, right? 150 people, 50% in Singapore, 50% in Malaysia. The mean age is 25.5, right? Very millennial, generally very young, what you expect in a small tech startup as well, right? Here's how they filled this up. Of course, I cleaned this up as well. In our actual internal list, this was way bigger as well. But I'll walk you through. Hopefully, I'll spend just 5 minutes on each case study. So if you don't mind, can I just take an extra 10 minutes, Sriram?
maybe 5 beyond, so that we have some more questions to be answered.
Sure, I'll try to speed through them, right?
Sure.
So problem, I think you all can read it quicker than I say, right? This startup is very interesting. They had 3 suicide attempts in Q3 2021, which drove a very high urgency for them to actually come to us. They saw 20% higher leave days taken in the same quarter. And when HR reached out, there were a lot of stories as well, right? What's yellow highlighted is the improvement after we ran a 6-month trial program. We are still in the midst of that as well, right? They saw an improved WHO5 mental health score. Leave did not go down yet. I think because of the higher awareness, people continue taking leave, but at least it did not go higher. The trend plateaued, right? Adoption of the mobile app was extremely high, right? It was running at about 70%, right? They use, for the HRIS, they use Fresh Teams, and they also use Google Forms for their employee surveys. Because they are a tech startup, they use these tools. They don't see the need to actually use something more professional yet. Previously, they only ran traditional annual health screenings, right? And internal champions, they belong more to a hierarchy culture. So you can see how internal champions link to culture fit. This is very important, right? This is the linkages between these two as well, right? So it makes a lot of sense for the internal champions, for them to speak up, share their own personal stories as well. In the next slide, you'll see what kind of programs they actually did. And in terms of their marketing, they rely a lot on emails and their monthly town hall meetings using Slack as well for posting and doing their own internal marketing. They also constantly reminded their line managers to run department meetings, and they even formed teams inside the app, right, to actually moderate the forums, contribute their own stories, and run challenges as well, right? So this actually cost them about $7,000 for a 6-month program because they were in a huge rush. Right? There was no co-pay model, but we are talking about that for the extension full-year program. There was no EAP as well because they didn't have the budget for that. But we did bring the therapists to actually run a lot of talks for them. At the same time, they also prominently featured MyLine, right, for their Singapore-based staff. But unfortunately, for the Malaysia-based staff, they couldn't use MyLine. So we actually came up with some Mindfi features to kind of like simulate MyLine for their Malaysia staff as well. These are some of the solutions they use, right, inside the app, right? So you can see that there's e-learning, they did some talks, they actually ran an app challenge, right? So that was very fun. And that's one of the reasons why the percentage surged up to 70% as well. A lot of their leaders did the sharing because it's a hierarchy culture, right? We even provided them anonymous helplines if they want to do some calling to SOS. So we have a lot of that in Singapore. We also provided the same ones in Malaysia as well. I can provide that for 14 different markets, right? So this is how we kind of did it. Because of the lack of time, I will just move on to the MNC example. This is a global MNC, right? 2,000 packs in the accounting industry. They are located in Singapore, higher mean age of 31 years of age, right? And here's the problem set, right? Abbreviated for us, right? They saw very poor utilization for their previous EAP solution. In fact, they were looking for something more modern, right? What they call EAP 2.0 or something, not just providing EAP, but connected to other self-care resources as well. And that's what we did, right? They also had a lot of employee engagement survey, right? The relevant components show that 69%, which was a record high in Q4 2021, indicated they need help with their mental health, right? So they decided to come to us. We saw a 200% increase in their EAP utilization, right? A lot of them wanted to actually look at EAP solutions, and we have 85% satisfaction rating for their EAP, right? We also saw a 9% improved mental health score, right, with these people after 3 months of usage as well. Adoption rate was at 35%, which is more of the industry rate number, right? We did not spike it with any challenges, but we may do it later on as well to drive greater engagement. Right? Previously, we're using ComPsych, which is a traditional EAP, right? But they also run a lot of existing programs such as monthly talks and wellness talks and so on. They use very sophisticated solutions, Workday, right, for the HRIS, Peakon for employee surveys. They have 100 internal champions, right? Internally, they are trained on mental health, first aid, and so on. So you can see that they do a lot, right? In terms of how they do marketing, they run internal messaging channels. Yammer was big. They prioritize this over emails because people are swamped with emails, but people check Yammer a lot more. They run a lot of monthly virtual meetings, and there were a lot of peer-to-peer invites as well done on the Mindfi app, right? Peer-to-peer invites are very important, right? That's more important than people clicking on a HR email and so on. So you want to make sure that, you know, like when you have something run by internal champions, you know how to make use of them rather than saying, hey, here's 5 internal champions we have, ask them when they are free. They will never be free, right? And when things are too structured, they may not use it. This is a hard driver market culture, accounting firm, right? People are competitive, they're very OKR focused, right? They are hard drivers. It was important for some of these managers to be the leaders as well to show that there was permission from the top to use it. They have spent a lot of money for sure, being a larger company, right? And they have also increased their budget time and time again to renew and increase their solution with us. They have a co-pay of where they require the employees to pay 10% for those people who exceed their limited usage. So for example, right? Yeah, I see Sriram smiling there. They are limited to 3 sessions. Anything above 3, thank you. But you know, we don't have so much money, even though we are a big company, right? Please pay, right? So, you know, like some of them pay 10%, some of them pay 50%. They are revising this structure with us as well. They already have a big library of paid programs under their flex benefits as well, right? So this is a company that actually has a lot, right? But they decided to actually acquire this app to provide it to 100% of their staff because it's very different from their existing flex benefits program apps. So this is a full range of their what they do, right? As a large company, they have done a lot over here. You only see a few things that are actually not checked as well, right? And so that is the second case study. So at this point, I'm just going to pause to take questions and also being mindful of my time, handing back the time back to you, Sriram.
Thank you very much, Bjorn. Really appreciate it. That was a comprehensive session by all the 3 speakers. At the outset, I would like to really thank all of them. Let's maximize the next 20 minutes with your questions that you have. If you want to ask your questions, you can unmute yourself and also ask. And if you are hesitant, you can always put it on the chat. Right? Marion, there's one question that went unanswered. So this is a reverse scenario, I would say, right? Any advice on how to deal with the culture of obsession with being positive regardless of the situation?
Well, I actually answered this privately. I answered most of the questions privately.
Okay.
Because then they could interact with me. Yeah. Okay, sure. But what I'm going to do is actually cut off all the chatbots and I'll send you chatbot questions. I'll send you my summarized version that's more generalized after, if you give me a few days.
Sure. Okay.
But I did want to add to Bjorn's presentation one bit. You see the big companies that are also doing everything well, and same with healthcare or public sector. We have a lot of things going on. The layer you all must look at is the layer of the extra stressor of a crisis the whole world faces. That reduces the optimism of everyone, and everyone's under this same stress. So whenever I say go to nature, go and breathe, go and sleep, right, what Bjorn has been saying is because there is additional stress on average stress. And anyone who's driven by the normal indicators of success will feel as if the whole world is pulled away from them. So the main thing is really slow much more down. KPIs try to reduce. I know you cannot, that's going crazy. The threat is not the real threat. The threat is inside our own body system of all the things we expect. So that is a danger. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. This question is for both Caleb and Bjorn. And this is on the ethical aspects of using a humanized AI therapist, right? So any quick feedback from both of you? I'll start with Caleb.
This is a very difficult question to answer, to be honest. I think anything that deals with ethics will be very hard. But I suppose what you're trying to ask is whether these data will be sold, whether these data will be used. I think that's the fundamental aspect of it. If the data is being kept confidential, if it's not used, then I think it's okay. And the very important thing is that we are all given a choice, whether we want to share anything or not. We don't force you at gunpoint to say that you need to share everything with us. So if you intend to share, and of course, keeping in mind what you want to share, I think that should be okay, as long as users are given the choice and flexibility. Yeah, that's my point of view.
Fantastic. Bjorn?
Ethics is, ethics is definitely a key concern. Over on our side, we make sure that we are compliant with global standards such as ISO 27001. Right? We have also voluntarily started our process to be HIPAA compliant, which is the Healthcare Information Protection Act of the US. Right? To make sure that we don't sell anybody's data to research entities, third parties, run ads, and all that kind of funky business, because we are not in depth. business, right? We see employee and employer confidentiality very highly as well. In fact, everyone user that posts in our community forums are anonymous by default, right? So that's a key thing. So we subscribe ourselves to third-party annual audits to make sure that we don't, like fall outside of the industry norms.
Fantastic. Okay, and the key and the aspect that I really liked, Bjorn, is to adapt the business model canvas to the HR scenario, because leadership is going to like it. They know that the HR teams are actually talking a business language if you adopt the BMC to the human resource perspective. And to all the HR teams out there, there's a calculator that Caleb had shared from the HPB. There are a lot of calculators that are available for you to share your return on investment for investing in mental wellness and employee wellness that you can show to your leadership. So don't worry, there are enough resources that are available to leverage rather than creating your own templates on ROI. Okay.
I need to add, sorry, I need to add one more thing. So Bjorn said, actually, right, there's a lot of these companies that want things. And actually there's monthly run peer supported events. But big companies have told me repeatedly, oh, our colleagues want to attend something by their fellow colleague. This is the mindset that has to change. I call it peer share, not wait for an expert to give advice, right? So peer share more and encourage peer sharing more. Don't even give them the external speaker. If the external speaker is coming half an hour and then give them their peers to talk to each other. This is very dangerous, okay? Very dangerous and very expensive and very unnecessary.
Yeah, I want to echo and add on to Marion's point as well. Actually, a lot of the companies in Singapore are still quite cost conscious, which is why I think having champions run these sessions is important, right? And I want to connect the dot with what Caleb said as well. If you have a room that they go to, most of the time they might not go as well, right? So this is why running virtual sessions actually help more, right? It's they don't know who's joining, so they could actually create another different account and go in. It's actually very powerful as well for them to join, right? You don't have to worry about external people coming in, as the Zoom or MS Teams, you can kick people out if you wish to, but don't break that channel, right? Don't deny your employees the opportunity to engage anonymously with your champions. If you have a bad session, recognize that, right? If you, it could be a sign of repressed anger as well. If there's one person doing that, at least let them vent, right? Because don't be afraid to actually make mistakes this early, because every venting actually could really help them on the end as well, right? What you should do is to make sure your manager knows how to handle situations like that. In the extreme case, if they are in the red zone, you must know how to deal with the red zone. Then you can have the orange zone, and then the green zone will feel welcome in this community to participate.
Thank you, Bjorn. In fact, I quickly wanted to share this, right? There are a lot of resources available. Internally, we use some of these ready templates, right? I don't have a person dedicated to run mental well-being. So I take the Mindfi calendar, quickly customize it for the organization. And then we have an April mental well-being calendar. So there are templates available, but not the way that you might want, but things can become easier. I quickly pause that. Okay, if you really want to get the various resources, the answer to the questions, the video recording, all of you need to turn on your videos and for a quick photograph. Okay, so okay, all the resources would be vetted by Ihrp, and then we would send across the questions, the various resources, the video recording, all of it. Fantastic.
Are you doing a countdown for us, Sriram?
Yeah, so that's 3, 2,
So many cameras turn on.
1. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Okay, one more. 3, 2, 1. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Quick check. We don't have any questions at this point of time, but if there are, this is the time. You know the rates that Marion charges per hour. This is the best time to get it for free. Okay.
One of them wanted to give me a job, no, Sriram. I should thank you. I said no, thank you. Sorry, I can't. I'm going to go summarize what the questions were before. Summarize as a general whole. Number one, most of you didn't have main concerns, but there was one that was an intervention, and I could tell immediately. So sometimes when you cannot tell if it's an intervention, go to your own EAP person and ask, given what you can see from the behavior traits, and ask whether there's an intervention. The other parts of it were mostly how to manage emotional contagion. Emotional contagion means culture, like what Bjorn said. That really depends on the leaders. A lot of people mirror the neurons, mirror the face and the expressions of the leaders or the community cheerleaders. That is actually a nice to have. It is not a must have. I repeat to you and everyone else I've met, your job cannot give you satisfaction in life. Full stop. Neither can your family members or your spouse. You satisfy yourself. Your job is a place you go to add value to the world, and it also should give you a fair return. If your job bullies you, that's a different discussion. So what I could see many of you were having is emotional, like, oh, they're sad. I don't want them to be sad. Welcome to the whole world is sad. Everyone's going to be sad. I am so sorry. That's fine. You got a job, Singapore, fine. You can wear no mask and go and hang out now. Please encourage people to be human, right? So most of it, what I thought was that. But to add to Bjorn's point, maybe some lessons in resilience, because everybody has the challenges now that's extra. The challenge is resilience and peak performance, not mental health. Yeah, from what I can say.
Fantastic. Caleb, your 30-second summary, takeaway, sharing.
Wow, that was quite quick. So I think it's important, we've all heard a lot about, how to do certain things today. And I'm not sure exactly, who has started, who has not, but it's important to take to take a human approach, to really understand your employees. That's key to running any programs, running anything in the workplace. Of course, there are many things that stresses that we face. I know my kid is here, running around. I'm like super stressed because I have to run off. But as HR practitioners, you need to make sure that you put on your self-care mask first. You put on your oxygen mask. I think we've all heard this before. Also in the event yesterday, we heard this. Put on your own oxygen mask. Do your own self-care before you look after others, and understand what everyone is facing and be empathetic. You don't have to stress over many things. Just focus on what you can do for them in the workplace itself. So that's my key takeaway.
Thank you very much. Bjorn?
Yeah, my 30 seconds is that, I'm a big football fan, right? And if you are into sports as well, you know that everybody, like 10, 20 years ago, they only focus on making sure they train their body, they train their body, they train their body. Elite sports today focus on the mind, right? Mental conditioning is way more important than anything else. Naomi Osaka, tennis world #1, talks about it as well. Recently, Olympics athlete talks about it as well. None of us here, I think, are elite athletes. We work in the office, right? We should have a fit body, but we need a fitter mind. We need a fitter mind, right? So I think the pandemic has given us a very strong lesson that, we may have neglected the health and fitness of the mind, the brain, all this time, because we need to learn how to generate a good, strong exercise regime to help people in different stages of mental fitness, in mental health as well. So I hope no matter what initiative you take going forward, bring in the professionals, rope in your peers, your friends, right? Come up with a program step by step at your own pace, and let's, make sure that mind fitness, mental health is available and accessible by everyone in the workplace. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Bjorn. I get stressed out seeing the numbers dropping out. So I'm going to have one quick final request. Dr. Chan from Energy had this to say to all of us during the panel discussion organized by IHRP last week. It was #ICommit. All the HR professionals need to commit 30 minutes every day to really focus on self-care, to do something meaningful for their own themselves, because you got to put your own oxygen mask before you put it on for your employees and others, right? So I would like all of you to put #ICommit on the chat box if you really want to get all the resources to your email, and commit on doing whatever you are already doing. 30 minutes of that Tai Chi or meditation or, mindfulness plus walk, whatever it is, but let's commit to that. Any other questions, queries? Karina, anything else from your end?
No, I was just reflecting on the WHO questionnaire and the responses from the group itself. I think, we do need to reflect on it and see how we can take better care of ourselves, because most of those responses tend to be in the less than 50% of the time. So maybe this is something that, I think at Ihrp we're also going to take back to see, what additional support we can provide to the HR community. But I think for the HR folks here who participated in the WHO survey, that's something to also maybe just spend a little bit of time. I think we have about 7 minutes, right, to the end of this, to think about what was it that triggered that response. So that then, we can then, at least do a little bit of something for ourselves to see whether we can turn things around a little bit. Yeah. So that was a good, thanks Bjorn for sharing that. That was a very good sort of survey and reflection point for me.
The reverse ladder was quite a bit of a shocker, right? Thankfully, I think a couple of responses broke the ladder, but I think it's a great insight. And if that's the shape of just 50 people, I'm really interested to know how it would be for the larger HR community.
Sorry, so Sriram, I need to add. Dr. Chan also mentioned, because I watched the video, right? Literally, there is actually a very big value in nature. And I can tell you that because of the data, the waves, so alpha waves, beta waves, theta, delta, right? You need to go to nature because of the way it's built. It calms you down biologically. You need to walk with your feet without shoes on sand and grass. Okay, where possible, get out 10 minutes and do that and stand in the sun. That's vitamin D. You all need to do that first. We cannot ground ourselves when we're on these screens. These screens are not helpful. They're not even mirror neuron. I don't know whether Caleb's looking at me is 5 seconds ago or now. It's very unhealthy. The other thing is eye connection. When you look at your children, or see it very nice, child, animals, right? Eye to connection, because that helps you to also calm down. You look at the eyes, you connect socially. So be very aware that nature and eye connection and bodily non-intrusive touch, right? Everybody needs more of that now that we can come out again. So these are clear psychological tools, yeah?
So I have had some of the employees in large corporations say that the HR teams respond to emails perfectly. They don't really want to talk in person or meet face to face. And so we are now trained to really be very proficient in being responsive, but I think that human touch really needs to come back.
You're tired lah. I'm also tired. You think I want to talk to 101 people. So number one, see they're all laughing, right? I'm not like, hug self, hug teddy bear, okay? You need to come first, then talk, and choose only 1 or 2 people a day to talk to. Don't talk to everyone. You'll be tired, then you go back and scream at your husband, wife, whatever, then don't blame anybody. Okay, so choose, hug. See, now all the children come up. Very good.
Yeah.
Why the children are hiding? Never asked you to hide the children, right? See, look what happened. Very good.
That's great.
What last question? One last question. How you react if someone tells you they're having a difficult time? Oh, very simple lah. I'm sorry. Because the answer is it's not your fault, not their fault, right? So the first thing is, I'm sorry you're having a difficult time. What do you think I can do to help you? Or can I just listen to you? Full stop. And the help doesn't mean you will be able to help. The main thing is when people are very tired, it's like they're drowning, right? The poor bear is drowning. My first job is to get him to come out for air, right? I cannot go and do more than that. So I throw him a float lah, right? Or I say, how can I help you? What do you need from me? And I'm sorry. And sorry doesn't mean you did wrong. Huh? You're sorry they're feeling upset. And facial wise, darling, if you're tired, please don't go and show your face anywhere. Honestly, you can't help anybody. It's not your fault. You are so exhausted. They look at you, they also don't tell you. You know how my teachers, they're always so cute. They always say, but no student tell me something wrong. I say, I look at you, you think I want to tell you. You look so angry, you look so frustrated. I tell you, I get more frustrated. I say, okay, I don't know. My mom and dad, my mom loves me. Every time I was in a problem, I never told my mom. Because my mom was like, kanchong, kanchong, kanchong. So I tell her, she kanchong, I get more upset. So no, I also don't tell my mom. Can you see? So the answer is, unless you are calm, you cannot hold the space for someone else. It's not your fault. So get calm, send someone else. That's called HR team, right? More than one person, right? Send someone else, okay? Rotate the people.
Fantastic. Thank you very much once again for joining in. It was a real pleasure having you on this masterclass. We look forward to working with IHRP to host future masterclass sessions where we really have a hands-on exposure to some of these difficult concepts. But I would like to assure you, next time we will do it face-to-face, no more virtually. Okay, thank you once again. Have a great week.